To order the meeting of the Arlington Select Board for Monday, August 10th, 2026. It is 7:15. My name is John Hurd. I am the Select Board Chair, and I will confirm that all members are here. Starting to my right.
Joe Solomon.
Eric Helmuth.
Shusher, Diane Mahan.
James Feeney, Town Manager.
Michael Cunningham, Town Council.
Ashley Marr, Board Administrator.
Thank you. And Mr. DeCoursey is en route back from vacation, but unfortunately will not make it for the meeting tonight. That takes us to item number 1 on our agenda, Introduction, Recycling, Zero Waste Coordinator, Laura Olivier. Ms. Olivier, you can come on up. Welcome.
Please.
Hello.
Thank you for taking a minute to come and introduce yourself to us. If you could just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your new employments.
Sure. So hi, I'm Laura Olivier. I just finished 3 weeks in the new position, and I'm learning quickly. Have come to meet a couple people at Town Hall, but not you guys, so it's great to meet you. So I come from a background in recycling. I just was served as a director for a small nonprofit in Somerville that served commercial clients in recycling, but I'm glad to be coming back to Arlington, where I'm from. I grew up here for my first 8 years of life, and then I've been here the previous 8 years. So I'm really glad to be coming back to serve this community and learn about what the needs are. I know my predecessor, Charlotte, has done a lot of great work, so I look forward to building on what she's done and listening to the residents about things they'd like to see improve.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And you're very lucky to have come in July 2026, not July 2025. It was a little bit of a stressful time in our trash and recycle period.
So I've heard.
I'll turn to the board for any questions, comments. Mrs. Mahan?
Is it Olivier? Is that how you say it?
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you.
Been anticipating your arrival. You may have heard my name over there on Ryder Street in the 3 weeks. If you haven't, you will soon. I'm really excited that you're here, and so are so many other people in Arlington that, as you said, you're piggybacking on Charlotte Milan, and Jackie Miller's there, and Mike Rademacher. And one of the things that's really important to all of us and you, being in municipal government, is outreach and communication with the public. And one of the things I found, and I imagine you have too, because I believe you also came from Earthworm before, so information really is power. And I understand, when I talk to residents to say that, well, that's waste management, the town doesn't do it anymore, we really need to respond. So as you're getting, your feet wet and learning the job, I certainly would be interested in just communicating with you what the best way is, and with the manager, in terms of all things trash, recycling, yard waste that fall under there, as well as being a good neighbor on Ryder and Beck Street, continuing to be a good neighbor on Ryder and Beck Street. But one of the things that you're coming into, but I always, when I started a new job and something was brand new, I thought that was exciting because I get to define it. We're a year in with
Waste management.
Waste management. I'm fogging out. I see WIN and I see Republic, and Waste Management went out of my, people are still learning, including town employees in terms of, but I really am hoping perhaps within the next year, your first year, in this position, you really outlining, yes, there's a waste management policy, but, it's 24/7 here in the town of Arlington, and Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, call only. They don't even have the website option anymore. So we need to work around that. So, but also not create something so cumbersome for you and your staff, because it's not like you have 5, 10, 15, 20 people under you. You know, you have to go with the labor that you have. So I look forward to working with you, and one thing you'll learn from me, you can say anything, and if I'm doing something that's just the wrong way to go about it, or something that doesn't even have to be addressed, I'm fine with that, because I can move on, you know, and do something else. But I want to do whatever works best with you, which ideally, the end result is, probably don't really hear from me. And that means yay. But thank you and welcome.
Thank you
I'm
very
really
much.
excited that you're here. I spoke to the town manager several times about you. He had glowing things to say. So I kept saying, you know, have you picked who is it? When is she starting? And welcome and glad you're here.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, welcome, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Likewise.
That brings us to item number 2 on our agenda, 2027 Senior Means Tested Exemption Application. We have Mitchell Suarez, our Acting Director of Assessments, and Gordon Jameson, our Chair of the Board of Assessors.
Yes.
I'm going to start with Mr. Feeney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to note this agenda item is part of a concerted effort to meet the board's override commitments to better publicize our property tax relief programs. You may have seen we recently did a buck slip mailer listing all of the tax relief programs that went out with our Q1 real estate tax bills, thanks to assistance from the assessor's office and the treasurer's office for that. We also wanted to invite this presentation this evening from Mitch and Mr. Jameson as well to talk through the still somewhat new municipal senior means tested circuit breaker, the applications for which are currently open. So if I could, I'll turn it over to Mitch and Gordon.
Yes, I'm Gordon Jameson. I'm the current chair of the Board of Assessors, and my job here tonight is to do the introduction. But first, I want to pause, and the board and the staff and I were very saddened by the passing of our past director, Dana Mann, in the last month. Dana was a wonderful person to work with. I've worked with him over the past 6 years when I was elected to the board. And he was just very much of a gentle leader, thoughtful, gentle, a family man. I read his wonderful obituary. It was just heartwarming, just a really good man and a big loss to the town. Currently, we have Mitch Suarez. He's the Acting Director of Assessments, and he's going to provide the presentation tonight.
Evening. I'm Mitchell Suarez. I'm the current acting director for the assessor's office. As Gordon stated, and Jim, we're here to discuss the means tested senior exemption program. So we're just going to do a brief overview of the program, who it's intended for, how to apply, any clarifications on the exemption itself. So it is intended for the seniors of Arlington, that it's going to be for anyone of age 65 and up. The program itself is modeled off of the state circuit breaker. The circuit breaker is essentially a tax credit that one can apply for when filing your state taxes. This program's qualifications, specifically the income qualification, are going to be based off of that, and we'll get into that later on in the presentation. For the CB itself, when you apply, the maximum amount that you can receive is the $2,820 amount. Not everyone is guaranteed to receive the maximum, but should you reach that, that is the limit of that particular program. For the town's version, the means tested applications were available beginning July 1. Prior to that, we had been compiling a mailing list to send out to residents. That will initially consist of anyone who had been granted this exemption in the past, and then any additions would be by request. Typically we get them via phone calls. Some people come into the office or just have other questions about property taxes. We like to inform the residents about all available options to assist them, and the means tested being the most recent of those options. So anyone who would like is welcome to be put onto that mailing list, and then the applications go out as soon as they are available. afterwards if anyone has any questions about it. We certainly got a number of questions via the buck slip that Jim had discussed. Should anyone be interested, we'd be happy to mail out an application to them. Otherwise, they are available online for download, or you could stop by the assessor's office and we'd be happy to give you a copy and answer any questions. As for the process of applying, first things first, it is for our seniors, age 65 and up, so we would need proof of age. These are just some examples of documentation that we would look at: your birth certificate, a driver's license, if you don't have a driver's license, your state ID, passport. We're essentially just looking to confirm that you are the intended audience. For the income, we have a few examples of how we look into the qualifying income for applicants. The most straightforward way for us to do that is if you have applied for and received the circuit breaker through your state tax filing. Alternatively, we would look at a federal tax return or a state tax return. This is going to vary depending on the applicant. Everyone handles their taxes and financial situations differently. So for those who do file taxes, we would ask for a copy of those. For those who don't, we would ask for 6 months of bank statements. That would be covering the months of June through December of calendar 25. Again, everyone has different financial situations, and this is just a method that has been devised to determine income for those folks. Alternatively, 1099s, any other various income statements. There's a broad range of types of income. Our application goes into more depth in those different types, and we'd be happy to answer any questions one may have. These are just the most common. As for assets, again, very common examples that we see: checking account, savings accounts, any other retirement type accounts. You have IRAs, 401ks, 403b, et cetera, et cetera. We would be looking for both statements and reports of any and all accounts you may have. Again, everyone has a varied financial situation, and the list of assets does go into greater detail in the application itself. And should anyone have any questions on asset types or income in general, they're welcome to call the assessor's office for any clarification. Now, there are some differences between the fiscal 26 and fiscal 27 applications. Generally, the reason for these changes is because as we become more familiar with the application process, as it is still a relatively new exemption, we become more aware of the variety of financial situations that our applicants have. And these changes are intended to make sure that we can cover all of those situations in an equitable manner. So first one, in 26, we had just asked for the circuit breaker form if you had it. Now, if you have the circuit breaker form, we will also ask for your state tax return. Again, that's just so we can get a more full picture of each of our applicants and ensure that the qualifications are being applied equitably. As we had discussed earlier about bank statements, in the prior year, we just asked for a single bank statement. And in fiscal 27, the current fiscal year, we are looking for those 6 months of bank statements, again, with the goal of ensuring that we are being equitable throughout the application process. Some important dates. The deadline is coming up, September 10th, 2026. There still is time to apply, and we would hope that all who feel that they qualify do apply, or at least reach out for any questions they may have. As far as the income limit goes, we are looking at your income during calendar 25. For a single person, 75,000. For a head of household, that would be 94,000. If you file jointly, 112. Again, for the tax returns, we are looking for the calendar 25 federal and state returns. And for the list of assets that we had discussed, we would be asking for balances as of December 31, 2025, with a total asset limit of 250,000. Some further distinctions. When we look at income, we are looking for the gross income that is prior to any deductions that you may have on your returns. And as far as the asset portion goes, for additional real estate, any ownership of additional real estate that would be an excessive asset, that places the applicant outside of the intended recipients of this program. And again, if anyone would have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the assessor's office.
And very quickly, I want to thank Dana and Mitch and the staff of the office. They've put, this is a large amount of work every summer preparing this application. And the board spends every meeting during the summer and into the fall talking about this issue. So it's quite a burden, but we're happy to do it to help the citizens who qualify out. And thank you, Mitch.
Thank you. I'll turn to the board for any questions. Mr. Helmut?
Thank you very much. No questions, but I want to express my appreciation, Mitch, for stepping up in your current role. I know that was not something you expected or necessarily wanted, but I know the town manager and your colleagues and the assessors appreciate your hard work, and we do too. I appreciate the clarity of the application. I was pleased to look it over. I think it's laid out really well, very clearly, and also just appreciate your availability starting tonight with being helping to spread the word. So good job, and we look forward to this continuing to be a success.
Thank you, much appreciated.
Mrs. Mahan?
Should I move receipt?
And I'll second.
And I do want to say, Mr. Mann, Dana's passing certainly left a hole in a lot of our hearts, especially going through the long-range planning meetings and the override. Dana went sort of above and beyond the Board of Assessor role. We threw another thing on his plate, his platter, and he just did it quietly, kept his head down, came to the meetings, had the information. But he also spoke of you, Mr. Suarez, working with you, and kind of felt like he was sort of guiding you in terms of this, the workings of the office, and had really great things to say about you. And please pass to everybody in the office. I haven't had a chance to come by to personally express the condolences, because I know it's tough when you're in there doing such an important job, with a heavy heart. But I've heard from Mr. Jameson and one of the other assessors, Mrs. Winstanley O'Connor, that the good news is business is running as usual, which isn't the easiest thing to say. So I would just have one question. I understand you said the deadline date is September 10th?
Correct.
Just because, and I think it's great, and I thank the town manager and the deputy town manager, Ms. Wayman, and the chair, Mr. Jameson, for getting that information out on the buck slip, as well as the ACMi production, the tax relief program. But where this is a fairly new program, I know when I talked to seniors, last time was last Wednesday up at Panera in Burlington. If you want to go see the St. Agnes crowd, they're up there. And it was explaining from my memory what I thought the documentation might be. And I said, but I'll, get it for you. Sometimes it's a little bit daunting, and sometimes in different constituencies, if you see 4 things or 5 things, you kind of shut down a little. So my question would be, if I said to someone, listen, get an application. And if the answer is no, tell me no. Get an application, fill out as much as you can, and make sure you get it in by September 10th. Ideally, get the other, if you can only get one or two of the 4 or 5 things, get the other one. Say somebody did that, do they have to have whatever the required number of documents in by September 10th? Or if they get their application in by September 10th, is there some sort of grace period to say, you kind of filed an extension for a month or two? Do you know what I'm asking? I'm trying to get people to do that when they see all those, when I talk to that constituency and they see all those things, and they're like, I don't know if I can get it together in time, but, so.
Certainly. I would agree the most important thing to do is get the application in by the deadline of the application. If we don't have an application by that time, our hands are tied. As far as the documentation goes, yes, we do try to be flexible with our applicants to both assist them prior to and post deadline. We have some room with, assessor's discretion to be able to assist people in this manner. That being said, there are some limits to how long we can extend past the deadline to get the required documentation, but yes, we do work with our applicants.
Yeah, so the way that's worked in the past is if the application is lacking of some salient pieces of information, at the discretion of the Board of Assessors, we've instructed the director to inquire about clarification on an issue. I think that's the way it's worked in the past. But I think the applicants should really focus on trying to get it in by the deadline. That's why deadlines exist. And it's also important because it has to all be reviewed by the office staff and then reviewed by the board to approve the ones that qualify. And then very quickly thereafter, we come before the select board again to choose the percentage number. And then we have to then come with and that gets applied as part of the tax rate report that we do in the fall. So there's lots of other things that are going on in the assessor's office beyond this as they compile all the different property values to setting the tax rate. So this and the tax rate and other things are constantly on their list of activities. So it'd be very helpful if things could be complete and in by the 10th of September. But the staff has always been there to help people file the application to the best of their ability.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
That good?
Yes.
Okay.
Solomon?
Yes. It's good to meet you a few weeks ago, and thank you for stepping up unexpectedly. I had a couple maybe more technical questions, so if it's easier to email, that's fine. Somebody successfully applies, gets a credit here. How do they see that come to them?
Are we talking about the means tested?
Yeah.
The means tested is applied, any relief would be applied to the third quarter bill.
Okay, so on their property tax bill for the third quarter.
Correct.
Okay. And do we have a sense of, over the last few years, how many people have applied, how many people have achieved this?
I have the numbers from last year. We had granted 29 applications with an average exemption, as it does, the amount varies from application to application, as is the nature of the program.
Okay.
But on average, it's a bit over 1,000.
$1,000?
Yes.
Okay.
For last year specifically.
And do you have a sense of how many people, in theory, are eligible for this? Like, to follow on Ms. Mahan's point, we're trying to help as many people as we can. 29 out of 2,000, 29 out of 30?
Well, the applicant numbers is in the 30s.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
and the office and the board and the manager's office and the Joan Roman have all worked to publicize this heavily over the last 2 years. And we have not seen a large increase in the number of applicants beyond the mid-30s so far. So that's why we're here again.
Okay.
And Mitch will be giving a presentation to the senior center. We hope to have some other outreaches as well in the interim.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. We have a motion to receive by Mrs. Mahan, seconded by Mr. Helmuth. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 3, vote and approval of $1 million bond authorization for lead service line replacement program, MWRA, interest-free loan. We have Lynn Gallagher, our town treasurer.
Good evening, Lynn Gallagher, Treasurer Collector. Nice to see you all again. Thank you to the Select Board and Chair for having me tonight. I'm here for you to consider and vote on the approval of the MWRA Local Water Systems, it's a long one, Assistance Project LRP 27-068. This is part of the Community Lead Service Line Replacement. If you want a little context to it, it's represents Phase 3 of the Town of Arlington's comprehensive lead service line replacement program. So this loan is for $1 million from the MWRA. The funding is going to be in the form of an interest-free loan for the town. It will be repaid to the MWRA in 10 equal installments over 10 years. The installments are $100,000 each, and the initial loan repayment, it will commence on August 15th, 2027. So that's sort of the basic outline for this loan, and I present it respectfully for you to consider and hopefully vote approval of.
Mrs. Mahan.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. Nice
You're
to see you.
welcome.
And please
You
don't
too.
take my lack of any comments or questions to mean anything, but you've done such a great job, and your staff has done that I don't have any. So I'd like to make
Excellent.
a motion to approve the
Thank you.
sale of a $1 million water bond with the distributions of funds planned for August 27th, 2026.
Correct.
Second.
All right. We have a motion to approve by Mrs. Mahan, seconded by Mr. Solomon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous vote.
Excellent.
you.
Thank you very much.
All right, next we have a proclamation. Item number 4, Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness 2.0 Program, Community Liaisons. Mr. Morgan?
Good evening. David Morgan, Environmental Planner. Thank you for having me. I didn't prepare any remarks because I sing this group's praises wherever I go. I have been in regional settings where other municipalities have looked to this group's leadership to identify the needs of priority communities, folks who are immigrants, might not speak English as their first language, elderly, low income, et cetera, that the state has selected and sort of designated as the focus populations for the new version of the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program. So we had a set of half a dozen or so community liaisons in Arlington working to reach those communities, and they opened doors for us. I mean, the planning department has new connections, deepened connections with those communities and the town in general. And I have to say, they're just fabulous people. They became friends with one another through this process, and it was a delight to see them come together and, you know, bring their communities together in support of the project that we pursued. In the end, the project we pursued was cooling centers at a couple locations throughout town. They identified the need. They basically put the program together in conversation with our consultants and the town, and we are off and running. We've had several successive heat waves this summer, and they are being used, I'm happy to say. They are doing their job, and so it's a total success, and it really owes to the community liaisons and residents of our community who made it happen.
Thank you. And we do have a proclamation here. And it says, whereas by 2080, Arlington's climate could closely resemble that of Baltimore in 2026 if emissions are sharply reduced, or Memphis if not. making summer days in Arlington potentially 4 to 11 degrees Fahrenheit hotter, and winters 5 to 12 degrees Fahrenheit warmer. And whereas climate projections predict as many as 64 days of temperatures over 90 degrees Fahrenheit by 2080, worsened by urban conditions that could elevate local temperatures a further 15 degrees. And whereas extreme heat often results in the highest annual number of deaths among all weather-related disasters. And whereas Arlington residents are not affected by climate change equally, with older adults, people with disabilities, youth, immigrants, and people who speak English as a second language rendered more vulnerable. And whereas municipal action on climate change has often lacked the perspectives of priority communities like those named above, a trend the Commonwealth seeks to rectify through the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness 2.0 program. And whereas the town of Arlington received the support of the MVP 2.0 program to develop a social resilience initiative responding to extreme heat, now launched at 3 cooling centers under the Cool and Connected program. And whereas Cool and Connected was initiated, researched, planned, coordinated, and successfully executed with exemplary talent by a team of 6 community members serving as liaisons to the priority populations of which they are members. And now therefore be it resolved that we, the members of the Select Board, do hereby recognize Blanca Allen, Ana Andrade, Graciela Correa, Ellen Lee, Timothy O'Leary, and Sognan Yu for their years-long effort to protect all those affected by extreme heat resulting from climate change. We honor and thank them for their service on behalf of all of the town's community members. And with that, I'll turn to the board for any questions, comments, or motions. Mr. Helmut?
Thank you. I would like to enthusiastically move approval. Thank these wonderful volunteers and their leader, Mr. Morgan, for everything you do for the town. The MVP program is little known, and it really is really important for exactly the reasons that you and the proclamation mentions. So I appreciate the opportunity to spread the word about that, but especially about their work. So thank you.
No. I will second it and say thank you to Mr. Morgan and the Planning Department for coordinating with Arlington Eats, Calvary Church, and St. John's Episcopal Church for getting this together. And I want to say, at least since August 4th, on my different social media pages, I've gotten over 30 hits from seniors alone. Not only thanking for this, but reaching out to get information about these centers. And I know there's also something under our consent agenda regarding, is it wayfaring?
Wayfinding, yeah.
In order to more publicize the locations, so that if you're not on Diane Mahan's, not that you have to be social media, but you can go to the town's website page. You can click on Health and Human Services. I believe you can click on the Planning Department, as well as I'm sure they have information at St. John's Calvary Church with the V, and Arlington Eats. And one of the things that you and I were talking about in the stairway one of these days that I finagled you to the side is that not only is it a cooling center for people to get cool, it really is turning into sort of a neighbor social opportunity. And it's really been part of what people, you know, in light of everything in terms of day-to-day struggles, and we have the override. But then I hear from people, but this is one of the things that I do love about Arlington and why I do want to stay here is because of programs like this. So it is already pretty well known. And I'm also amazed by the different number of people who are also, all nonprofits that are also on the heat, in the midst of heat waves, are also getting this information out. So you've built a great foundation along with the names that Mr. Hurd just read and those 3 entities. And I look forward to continue to grow that program and getting the word out. Thank you.
So we have a motion approved by Mr. Helmuth, seconded by Mrs. Mahan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous vote.
Thank you very much.
That brings us to our consent agenda. It's items number 5 through item 14 on our posted agenda. Any of the items can be viewed there on the town agenda's website. I'll turn to the board for action on the consent agenda.
Move approval.
So we have a motion approved by Mr. Helmuth, seconded by Mrs. Solomon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous vote. Item number 15, we have a public hearing. We have the sharply dressed Mr. Marr presenting on behalf of the Cable Advisory Committee.
Good evening, members of the board. I have with me tonight Joseph Weiss, who's a member, a longstanding member of the Cable Advisory Committee. Tonight's is phase 3 of the ascertainment process, which precedes the negotiation for the 3 cable licenses in town. 2 of the phases have been accomplished already. Those interviews with stakeholders has been accomplished, as well as a townwide survey ably handled by Ashley and her staff. We are convened a 3rd phase tonight, which is the ascertainment hearing. The ascertainment hearing is pursuant to Chapter 168A of the General Laws, 207 CMR 300 at SEC, and 47 United States Code, Section 546. I'd like the public record to reflect that by default, the cable companies and the town have elected the informal procedure to date, but we reserve the right, the town reserves the right to revert to the formal procedure in the case there are already contentious issues during the negotiations. There are 2 purposes of the ascertainment hearing tonight. One is for you as the licensing board to hear from the community as to what the community's cable needs are. And secondly, to hear from the community, what are the cable company, how are the cable companies addressing these needs? The report of the Cable Advisory Committee will be made available to you at your next meeting, which I think is on September 14th. It will be available for the public to look at and comment on, and we'll have a short hearing on the 14th of September, which presumably your board will accept with any amendments you choose to have. The formal ascertainment report. Then it will be communicated to the cable companies. It'll tell the cable companies what the town is looking for in the renegotiations. Comcast license is in a holdover status. Their license expired in June. Verizon expires next March, and Astound RCN expires in September, or vice versa, one of those. If all goes according to plan, on October 5th, you will adopt the report, and negotiations led by the town manager or any member of the board who would like to participate will proceed. I just asked before the public gets up and whether or not any members of the cable companies are present. Would you be kind? No, cable companies, no. I don't think that they didn't come last time either. That's all, Mr. Chairman, and look forward to hearing from the community at this time.
Why don't I just say, can we check Zoom, if any members of the cable companies are here, if they could use the raise hand function on their Zoom application? Attorney Cunningham?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to, I reached out to the different representatives from each of the 3 companies and notified them of the process that was beginning tonight, and it was, so opportunity to be here, but it was not my understanding that they intended to present formally tonight, but they thank the board for the opportunity.
All right, and before we open this up for public comment, do any members of the board have any questions specifically for Mr. Marr? Attorney Marr? All right, so this is a public hearing. If any persons in the chamber would like to speak, you can line up behind the microphone here. If you are in Zoom and would like to speak on this item, you can use the raise hand function in your Zoom app right now. Attorney Leone? Yes, so there'll be a 3-minute time limit on public comments.
Good evening, I'm John Leone, president of ACMi. We've been the president since we got our first license and the first ascertainment so many years ago. This is the third time we've gone through it, and we're hoping that the town of Arlington is just as diligent in pursuing everything that ACMi needs in order to keep fulfilling our duties and our services that we've been providing to the town. Norm and his staff, I'm here with Norm McLeod, our executive director, who's been there as long as I have. They have done an ascertainment report, which you all have, which both electronically and in paper, that details out everything that ACMi does for the town and why the town needs us. There was just a couple things that I wanted to bring up before Norm starts to talk. ACMi, as you know, desperately is in need of funds. This is where we get our money. Federal government allows 5% of the cable bills to go towards our operation. We get that. We've always got that. We are going to ask that the town continue to negotiate and demand that we get that full 5% operating funds. What I'm further interested in is two items. The first is the capital. As part of the contract negotiations with the cable companies, they all want to be on a level playing field. They currently aren't. They have different capital funding that they give us. We would like to see that they all do get on a leveler playing field. However, for example, Verizon has been paying us Comcast has been giving us $50,000 a year for the last 10 years. In that time, the cumulative inflation has been 40%. So our $50,000 in today's dollars would be $70,000. So when you're negotiating, please get us more money for capital, because our equipment, these cameras, those TVs, they cost us more money and we can't continue to buy them. And the equipment in our studio itself, our switching equipment, our computers, our gear is all in need of replacement on a current basis. And the last thing I want to bring up is HD channels. Comcast is not broadcasting in HD. I mean, really? In 2026, they're not giving us HD? Verizon is giving us one HD station. RCN Astound is on all three of the stations are HD. So the other two should also be giving us HD. I mean, who has standard anymore? Can you even buy a TV that's not standard? It's ridiculous. So with that said, unless you have questions, I'm going to turn it over to Norm and let him give his spiel.
It's 2 minutes and 57 seconds. Very impressive.
Okay. Thanks very much. For Norm McLeod, Executive Director for ACMi. Just first of all, I want to thank the supporters who are here tonight, number one, and also those who sent in letters of support, which we have included in the ascertainment report, and I trust that you all have the ascertainment report. Also, one sidebar here, ACMi was created in 2006 when I was first hired. It's now 26. We're going to have a 20-year birthday coming up in October, so stay tuned, all right? But anyway, the staff and I really have been astonished, and in all honesty, we've been very humbled by the words of praise for ACMi that you can read in the ascertainment report. It's staff, they're praising the staff and for its coverage of places and events in Arlington. And we try and cover, as you know, everything. So check out the full letters if you go to the website, on our website, and it would be under documents on our website. As part of its mission to remain focused on Arlington, ACMi tries to support democracy, obviously, by coverage of meetings like this, and community involvement with its coverage of government meetings, elections, school events, concerts, sports, and of course graduations and Town Day. Those Arlingtonians who cannot attend these events because of distance, time, or disability can attend, in fact, because of our coverage. Additionally, with local journalism rapidly vanishing, ACMi provides hyper-local news coverage every week. In fact, we just received a national award for our coverage for stations within our budget range. We're very pleased about that. First time in 20 years, quite frankly. We keep trying. 20 years came up. We also connect with people with local organizations such as the Robbins Library, Council on Aging, the Arlington Center for the Arts, and of course, local businesses. And whether you're a resident, a student, intern, or volunteer, ACMi teaches invaluable skills that cannot be learned in a classroom. In fact, some of our ACMi students have gone into professional careers in broadcasting based on what they've learned at ACMi, and they come back and volunteer just to help out. Certainly, ACMi has grown over the last 10 years since the last ascertainment report, and our programming and coverage has increased. The request for our services has increased. Our footprint in town has increased. And of course, the cost of professional staff and the cost of keeping equipment up to date has increased dramatically. With inflation increasing the cost of equipment, coupled with decreasing capital funding, the cost of updating just one of our video servers would be the entire year's capital budget. One server, that's what we've got for capital budgeting right now. It too has decreased. Capital budgeting has decreased in the same way the operational funding of 5%. It is 5%, but it's 5% of those cable subscribers who are cutting the cable. So, unfortunately, cable cutting continues as most people decide to view their programs through streaming services such as Hulu, Netflix, and Disney instead of cable. As a result, ACMi's funding has dramatically decreased since we received 5% of the three cable operators' income, which is derived from cable subscriptions, which are declining. I repeat myself purposely. However, we do not receive any funding from any streaming service at all. Even though we stream all of our programming, we do not get any money from the other streaming services. In fact, a lot of folks, when we looked at the survey, a lot of folks didn't even know that we were on YouTube. They didn't know that we were streaming. They don't know how to contact us. We have to correct that, and we're planning to correct that, certainly. So, considering the increasing costs but the decreasing revenues, it's crucial that the three cable providers maintain the 5% funding that they currently provide and increase the capital equipment funding to allow us to stay up to date. And now, as John mentioned before, in addition, 10 years ago, we asked for our programs to be distributed on HD channels, but only RCN agreed to have all three channels go HD. Verizon, again, only agreed to one. Comcast, nada, nothing. Didn't agree to any, and it currently only is in standard definition. What their claim was, it was basically too difficult technically. That was 10 years ago.
Mr. McLeod,
That's what
I stopped your clock, but if you could just wrap up.
Okay, we're wrapping up right now. 10 years ago, we asked the cable provider for electronic channel guide for ACMi programming. They didn't agree to it, saying it was too difficult. It should be easy now. Let's put it that way. So, in conclusion, over the last 10 years, we feel that ACMi has more than satisfied the contractual requirements with the town, and we wish to continue serving the town of Arlington with high-quality programming. We hope that the town and the cable providers will agree to our requests in order for our ACMi to, quote, remain focused on you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have any questions?
Nope. Is there any other members of in the chamber that would like to speak on this public hearing? Going once, going twice, and with no hands. Yep. If you could just introduce yourself for the record.
Sure. Hi there, I'm Tommy Shenefield. I'm a member of Arlington Community Media. I have been for the past 10 years, and I'm a lifelong resident of Arlington as well. So I've been here for 25 years since I was born. And I just wanted to come here today to talk about how immensely impactful Arlington Community Media has been on my life. I first started volunteering in 9th grade, and I met so many friends and fellow volunteer staff members there. And now 10 years later, I work at Boston Neighborhood Network, teaching radio production, media production to a new generation of people. And I think it's just hard to quantify the impact of spaces like Arlington Community Media, where I didn't only learn, again, media production skills, I learned to be civically involved. I've never honestly set foot in this room before today, and I'm here because I care so much about ACMi. I've been to the State House to talk about supporting community media in our Commonwealth, and I've gotten, to talk to Sean Garbely and different people about the importance of what we do. And I just think we should think about, as we look at this 10-year review, who are the people right now who are in high school at Arlington High who might be becoming members at ACMi right now, who 10 years from now could be out there spreading the message of, the support that Arlington has provided for them, and creating, model citizens that will go out there to talk about important issues. And I think I'm rambling a little bit, but I just really want to emphasize that the services that Arlington Community Media provide go so much beyond only providing cable. It's providing, educational services and really community, feeling involved in Arlington and feeling a part of something. And I think it goes to show the number of people that have turned out today. Are the people who are here for ACMi allowed to stand up or something to show to show how many people are here?
Can't stop someone from standing up.
Yeah, and again, not one person from the cable companies are here, and we have, most of the audience is filled with people from ACMi, and I just hope that, beyond the numbers and statistics, you can see how many people care so deeply about this, and yeah, thank you.
And if you can just introduce yourself for the record.
Oh, wrong courtroom. Sterling Smith.
Go ahead.
20 years resident of Arlington, long-term Massachusetts resident. I've met more people since I joined ACMi than I've met in Arlington at all. If I'd known how to do this when I was in, 10th grade, I'd be a star by now. These people are amazing. They're open-minded. I've met more variety of people than I have anywhere else. I've been on a couple of talk shows. I tried to produce a show, but the stars left me. Jeff and company, and even before that, were more than willing to help me do anything. They answered all my email questions. And it's a very important access. Oh, visibility, that's what I wanted to say. I wouldn't have known, I didn't even know about Arlington Community 7 years ago. And I don't even know how I met, I know how I met you. But I think it's a wonderful resource. I think every town should have one. I've gone to Cambridge, CCTV in Cambridge, Somerville, Medford. They're all having the same issues, but I think the ACMi one is probably doing the best. They've got a great production team, and they're open-minded, and they let me talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rajiv Katian. I'm 31-year resident of Arlington. I learned about ACMi about 10 years ago, but really started volunteering. I don't work for ACMi. I'm a volunteer parent, started during COVID, because that was the best way to get in front of and watch my kids play soccer when no parents were allowed. I still volunteer. And with the support of Jeff and everyone, I cover most of the sports and volunteer all my time on sports. Educating the kids who come there for training, thanks to a lot of great youth coordinators at the back there. For those who want some statistics, the Arlington boys hockey team, who has gone twice to the semifinals, we had about 3,000 simultaneous viewers on YouTube watching the game globally. So that just gives you an idea, and that's all Arlington community. I'm going to continue my volunteer work across the variety of sports that are there in the high school. My kids are out of school. The last one just left. So continue the support as much as the town can give. I always give my time as much as I can give, and some donations whenever I can. Thank you.
Yep. Is there anybody else in the chamber that would like to speak? All right, and seeing no hands in Zoom, that will close the public portion of this hearing. I'll turn to the board for any questions, comments, or motions. Mrs. Mahan?
Do we need a motion right now, or no? Not until October? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney Cunningham. Just to close the public hearing.
Okay, and I just want to say before we do that, I want to thank everybody who's here, and yes, we did get a copy. Somebody color coordinated their shirt. Job well done. And we all are very appreciative of ACMi, including way back to when it was on Mystic Street and it was Continental Cable. And I remember working with Jim Clements. Some of you may know that. You youngins who don't, ask other people about that when Jim Clements was really a pioneer. And I'm always so appreciative of all the volunteers. As a testament to that, my very first photo on my camera roll is Jeff Monroe and was it Sarah? Not Sarah. Yes, because I was down coaching cheerleaders down at the high school and I left my phone there and ACMi was down there volunteering, covering the game, and they took the best picture ever. So whenever I do any of those things that says send your first picture on the camera roll, so I can't thank you all volunteering enough, and I know you don't do it for the thanks. You certainly don't do it for the pay. But I know the town appreciates different facets of what's offered, and a lot of it is sharing in community events. And for some people, whether it's sporting events, whether it's local government, whether it's Town Day, which that's an amazing production every year that ACMi and volunteers, you know, you don't get to sleep for 2 days solid, easy. And just what goes into that. So many people experience some of the best of Arlington by not even actually being at the event, but feeling like they are. And it's because of what all the volunteers with ACMi have done and will continue to do, because Town Day's coming up real soon. And thank you, Sean, down in the booth downstairs for taking care of this meeting tonight. So, and thank you all for being here. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask the supporters to raise their hand so I can get a count for the public record?
Sure. If you're here to support ACMi.
ACMi.
It's like an old school town meeting.
That's what I was trying to remember. I'm like, what is this reminding me of? That's right.
20.
Thank you.
21. Oh, sorry. Did we raise that here?
I think we're the hearing, so.
All right.
Do you need a motion to close the hearing?
We need a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to close the public hearing by Ms. Helmuth, seconded by Mrs. Mahan. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Public hearing is closed. Any additional comments? Thank everyone for coming. Due to ACMi, we get to broadcast to the millions and millions of viewers who watch our meetings every week, so you are a star now. So we certainly appreciate everything that ACMi does for us, for the town, for the sports teams. I love to watch sometimes I don't feel like going down to Ed Burns, and the production quality of the coverage of the Arlington High hockey game is just as good as watching Bruins on Netson. So thank you for everyone that does that. So thank you all, and that will take us to our next agenda item. If you're going to file out, please do so relatively quietly. That will take us to item number 16, under appointments. We have Permanent Town Building Committee, David Last and Su-Yu. If I can have you both come up if they're here, or if you're in Zoom land, we can promote you.
I've promoted Mr. Last.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Last.
Good
Welcome.
evening.
If you could just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your interest in the Permanent Town Building Committee.
Yes. My name's David Last. I've lived in Arlington for 4 years now. My son is 8, attends the Thompson Middle School. I've worked in real estate for over 20 years now. doing development, property management, as well as consulting and owner project management work. This felt like a good way, hopefully, to use the skills that I have to give back to this community. Since we've moved here, we've really enjoyed the neighbors, the community, walking to our school, having, the kids be able to bike down the street and, wave to their friends as they walk by. So we really value it as a family, and I'm looking forward to try and find a small way to give back and, make sure that the capital projects that are, within the purview of the board go as well and efficiently as possible.
Thank you. And I should have noted at the beginning that we actually don't have to vote on this appointment. They've already been appointed by a three-person committee. It was myself, the chair of the school committee, and the chair of the finance committee. But this was an opportunity to introduce our new members. So, let's turn to the board for any comments, questions. Thank you, Ms. Lass.
Thank you.
And is Sujin here? I don't see her on Zoom, although there's a phone number that just jumped in. Sujin, if you are here and you are in Zoom, please use the raise hand function. All right, we'll keep a look out to see if Sujin jumps on the Zoom. That will take us to Parking Advisory Committee, Andrew Brody. I see that Mr. Brody is in Zoom.
Oh,
Good evening,
hello.
Mr. Brody. If you could just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your interest in the Park Advisory Committee.
Yeah, hi, my name is Andy Brody. I'm a resident of Arlington for 26 years. I'm also an architect here in town, and I teach architecture and interior design up at Endicott College. And, basically I've been serving on town meeting for a couple of years and really was looking for a way to get a little more involved. And among other things, I teach lighting, and I had a nice discussion with Mr. Feeney earlier about the street lighting and some glare problems that came up. And anyway, the Parking Advisory Committee seemed like a good place to get started and maybe make a small difference in town.
Thank you. Turn to the board for any question, comments, and a motion on this one. Mr. Helmut?
Thank you. Move approval. Just double checking that you really want to get involved in parking in Arlington, because it's not at all a controversial or passionate issue that people feel about.
Yeah, I usually try to stay in my lane with this kind of thing, but parking will work fine.
So to speak. That was a pretty good pun. No, but joking aside, though, something that you learn very quickly joining the select board is that people are passionate about their trash, and they're passionate about parking. And that's as it should be, because a lot of the function of the local government is to get things like that right. And they're hard, they're complicated, we never have enough resources, we can't please everybody, there are limited resources, and parking is a really good example of that. We spend a lot of time thinking about and hearing from folks with competing needs and desires about what parking should look like, and frankly, we need all the help we can get. So I appreciate what advice you're about to bring us, and thank you for stepping up.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Yeah, this, I think, a fellow Precinct 16 town meeting member. Yeah, I think this is a great time for somebody who is skilled and thoughtful and interested in a subject to get into it, especially parking. We've got a little bit of a discussion that involves parking later tonight. It comes up, I think there's a concurrent meeting that's probably going to have impacts on parking when we talk about the design of town, the buildings that we build. So it is a fun and passionate topic, as Mr. Helmuth said. So thank you for volunteering.
Again, my pleasure. Can't wait for the fun to start.
Yes.
Is that a second?
Oh, second, yeah. I didn't know we were approving.
All right. And I look forward to working with you. You're lucky it's called the Parking Advisory Committee now and not still the Parking Implementation Governance Committee, which I think I say that every time we have a new member. But we're looking forward to some new members, because usually, right now it's just, I think, me, one other person, and all town staff. So it'll be good to have some resident input. And I hope you're ready to start talking about parking meters.
Oh, joy. Can't wait.
All right, we have a motion to approve by Mr. Helmuth, seconded by Mr. Solomon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commission for Arts and Culture, Delia Tharnish. I see Ms. Tharnish is on Zoom. Good evening. If you could just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your interests in the Commission for Arts and Culture.
Yeah, so my name is Delia Tharnish. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm currently the Education and Programs Director at Arlington Center for the Arts. Arlington Center for the Arts has always liked to have a staff member on the Arlington Commission for Arts and Culture, so that we make sure that we are working as a nonprofit and as a government commission together to promote the arts and culture in Arlington. I'm an Arlington resident for about 2 years. And I am excited by the opportunity to continue to promote, grow, and develop the arts in Arlington, and continue to find ways to invite the community to participate.
Thank you. I'll turn to the board for any questions, comments, or motions.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Solomon, seconded by Mr. Helmuth. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much.
All right, that takes us to open forum. Except in unusual circumstances, any matter presented for consideration of the board shall neither be acted upon nor decision made the night of the presentation in accordance with the policy under which the open forum was established. It should be noted that there's a 3-minute time limit to present a concern or request. If you're here for open forum, we can just form a line behind this microphone here. And if you'd like to speak in open forum on Zoom, then please use the raise hand function in your Zoom app now. Thank you. And if you could just introduce yourself for the record.
Hello, my name is Dale Duran. My husband, Luke, and I live at 66 Palmer Street. I also respectfully ask the select board for 6 minutes, 3 for myself and 3 for my husband, who cedes his time to speak to the challenges of the 6 families that we'd like to talk to you about tonight.
So we do 3 minutes per person. So he can come up or you can use your 3 minutes.
Okay. Get up and take over halfway through.
Apologize, but if we start doing that, then it becomes chaos and.
Thought I'd give it a show for last time,
Sure.
you know?
I'll do my best impression.
First, I want to thank you in advance for what we hope is a vote in favor of raising the parking permit cap later this meeting. The vote would represent real progress. I also want to ask you for help because there are still things about the raised cap doesn't fix. And I'll tell you about those challenges by sharing some stories from my street. My neighbors and I live in 3 consecutive houses at the corner of Palmer and Warren in East Arlington. Every single one of the houses has a tandem driveway, and they're multifamilies. So take a second to think about what that actually means. If the car in front needs to move, that means somebody has to come down the stairs, either move all the cars all at once by themselves, one by one, or closely coordinate if your neighbors are home at that time to swap all the cars at the same time. So the first house, Bethany and Sam are recent college grads and live in the downstairs unit. Various tenants have occupied the upstairs unit over the years, and there is one tandem driveway. 2.5 years ago, there were 4 working, driving adults between those 2 units. The top unit was home to 2 shift workers, who often are not considered when we think about who needs to move their cars. A tandem driveway does not work when the car in the back stack pulls out at 3 a.m. and the person blocking it is asleep. The car that needs to be out in the middle of the night is also rarely the last car in. So Bethany and Sam often parked in the street, and at one point, they were given tickets, 7 nights in 1 week. That's 14 tickets between 2 cars. That's 14 tickets between 2 cars. So one of the nights, Bethany even filled out the town's waiver, and they still got tickets anyway. So now a second version of that problem at the same address. Today, the upstairs unit is home to a couple in their 80s, and one of them is seriously ill. So Bethany and Sam ceded the driveway to the couple upstairs to make it easier on them. Bethany and Sam still each have a car, and both still park in the street every night, and they still get ticketed for it, and that's $50 to $100 a month at minimum between their 2 cars. and that's $600 to $1,200 a year for recent college grads. The permit Sam and Bethany cannot get unless the cap is raised tonight costs $365. And this means that they're fined more than a permit costs every year for letting their sick and elderly neighbors keep the driveway. And here's what I also learned today, which surprised me. Until this afternoon, when I asked them about their story, Bethany and Sam didn't know the permit program existed. So that means years of those tickets, and nobody told them there was another option.
The second house, that's our house. Don and Majid live in the downstairs unit. Majid works 2 full-time jobs and is also a shift worker. So whether he can get his car out in the middle of the night to go to work depends on who parked last, which is almost certainly not him. We live upstairs with my husband, with my wife. For years, we had 1 car and 1 off-street space. We did not apply for a permit last year, even though it would have been convenient for us. Instead, we left it for someone who needed it more. About a year ago, her mom was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I and her are her caregivers, and she lives up in Methuen. Some nights I'm home, sometimes I'm at the hospital, and this is so confusing.
I'm at the hospital.
She's at the hospital, and I'm at her house taking care of her dogs. This doesn't happen on a schedule. It doesn't tend to line up with when Dawn and Majid need to get out because we share that driveway. To get by with our new normal, we needed to get a second car, but by then the permits were gone, and there was no waiting list, and no permits are reserved for those. No permits are reserved for those whose needs may arise outside of January. So our options have been to engage in this process, attend these meetings, ask to be added to the agenda, which we were told can take up to 4 to 6 weeks, or wait until January until the permits reset, or get ticketed. The third house, John and Audrey own it and live upstairs. Their tenants rent the downstairs. John and Audrey have 2 cars. One belonged to their daughter, who's a college student, and their tenants each have a car. So again, it's 4 cars, 1 tandem driveway, and their tenants have been ticketed and waived since 2021. The takeaway is that between the 3 houses, you have 6 households. All of those 6 households have 2 cars. The town allows 1 permit per household, and if you're lucky enough to get one, it's attached to 1 car, which won't always be the car that needs to be on the street that night. This means that even now, even if tonight's vote raises the cap, this program can make overnight parking lawful for only about half the vehicles for the families I just told you about. And there are still more stories about Arlington residents who need to park overnight and have no viable path. Like a resident who drives a company car but is ineligible for a permit program because she doesn't own the vehicle she needs to park. Last thing, she's a lawyer and a native speaker, and even then she had a hard time understanding our options from the town's materials. So on behalf of my neighbors and myself and my wife, I'm asking the select board for 4 things. Make the program more visible and clear. Bring together Arlington department heads to find common sense solutions to the administrative and practical constraints facing the permit program, like snow emergencies and safe streets. Put forth a plan that meets the needs of all Arlington residents. And please consider what the rest of Arlington looks like if 1 corner of our street looks like this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, if there's anyone else in the chamber that would like to speak in open forum? Don't believe we have anyone in Zoom. All right, and you have 3 minutes starting now.
Thank you. I'm Stephanie Ford. I live at 12 Lockland in Precinct 8. I was a town meeting member for 10 years. I've lived in Arlington for 19 years. And I'm going to speak a little about the Arlington Historical Commission. I've owned and stewarded more than 1 historic home in my time. I'm here speaking to you as the body who appoints and approves the commissioners for the Arlington Historical Commission. I want the Historical Commission to be strong and to have a vibrant function and to be something that we can all be proud of. And I hope that in whatever time I have left living in Arlington, that I can contribute to that and lay a groundwork for others. People struggle under the burden of the requirements of the Arlington Historical Commission. And as you know, with many stories that people tell, that burden falls unequally on the disabled, the elderly, the economically disadvantaged. People live in a lot of fear of the Arlington Historical Commission. That's one thing that I want to eliminate so that everyone can be happier together. They live under the impression that the commission can take control over the exterior of any house at any time in any neighborhood. A question that I have to you to share with everyone, is that actually true? Can 3 unelected people place any neighborhood under town control? And what I mean by that is that in 2018, over 1,000 people who lived on 8 streets in one neighborhood called the Arlington High School South neighborhood received a letter saying, the Arlington Historical Commission now has control over the exterior of your home, including the authority to issue a demolition delay. In the same year, the Select Board did not move to expand the demolition delay. In the same year that the town meeting, who was on town meeting, did not move to expand the demolition delay. And in the same year that the consultants the town paid to work with the commission said, you are not acting in an appropriate and legal manner. And they did it anyway. How does this work? If I said at the Arlington Historical Commission meeting last week, a quorum of commissioners voted to place all the homes on Appleton Street, Howard Street, Grandview, onto this list and to take control of your exterior. I left somebody out, I don't know who. Hillside. Is that okay? And is that how it works? What would you say to your next door neighbor? Can this commission do this, and is this how it works? I'm asking for you to share, please, with the town to make a more friendly environment for the Historical Commission and all of us to let us know. How does it work?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else in the chamber that would like to speak in open forum? I'll look one more time, but if anyone in Zoom would like to speak, please raise your hand now. If not, that will close our open forum. Let me get back to my agenda. All right, that takes us to item 17. Presentation and discussion, design of Park Avenue intersection with Paul Revere Road in Wollaston Ave. We have our town manager, Jim Feeney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
D'Onofrio. Stand up.
Pleased to have a presentation on the Park Ave corridor project this evening, which, as the board may recall, targeted redesigning 3 unsignalized intersections on Park Ave to improve safety and accessibility. And they included those with Oakland Ave, Appleton Street, and the primary focus of tonight, which will be the intersection with Wollaston and Paul Revere. As a reminder, there was clear consensus following the public input phase of this project on the preferred final concepts for Oakland and Appleton Street intersections, which we will see tonight as a reminder. These intersections, those intersections were much simpler, and the final concepts did not introduce any turn restrictions, nor did they impact parking in any way. We now have cost estimates for those projects and intend on putting them into the town's construction pipeline using capital funds, hopefully as soon as next year. Tonight, we are seeking the board's feedback on 3 potential design concepts for the larger, more complex intersection at the bottom of the hill. This intersection notably houses a significant amount of MWRA infrastructure as well, which complicates things further. So the next step would be, once we have consensus on a preferred design concept, we will be able to advance that concept to a final design stage, and will put us in a position to figure out how to go about implementing it. So the concepts you will see tonight do not necessitate any amendments to the town's underlying parking regulations or traffic rules and orders, because the changes would effectively be forced by the built environment. But nevertheless, obviously in collaborative spirit, do want to get the board's feedback and questions, and would welcome a vote if board members were comfortable doing so at this juncture, but we could certainly provide additional information as necessary. So with that, I would turn it over to our design team from Stantec, including engineer and principal Elise D'Onofrio and urban mobility planner Erin Cameron Gilchrist.
Hi, good evening. If you just go to the next slide, quick agenda. Erin and I are going to go back and forth through this presentation. We want to present to you the background of the project, the challenges of
the corridor, even though we weren't looking at the whole corridor, but just trying to, take a look at each of these intersections while keeping in mind the context of the corridor. What our options are for the redesign, I do have a couple slides in here that we can go over the intersections that were finalized, and then we can go through the options that we have for the larger intersection at the bottom of the hill. And then we'll also run through design restrictions, just to kind of cover our bases. And then at the end, we can summarize next steps and take any questions. Next slide.
So a lot of this material is going to be some that we presented at a public meeting back in March of 2025 when we spoke with the community, brought some of this existing conditions information, and really heard from them what their challenges are. Park Ave was also identified through the Connect Arlington process as a corridor that really needed both vehicle driving and pedestrian safety improvements, so that's the lens that we're coming to. The next slide just shows some of the quotes that were pulled from the Connect Arlington process that's going to focus on these intersections that we've addressed. And you're going to see things like cars accelerating. We need formal parking, as we heard earlier today. All of those are themes that we've kept in consideration of the design process. And then one more background slide that just really focuses on the location of Park Ave in the broader Arlington context. So we know that there's a history of vehicle crashes here. We also know the proximity to the Audison Middle School and some of the other schools. We did a site visit out in the spring of 2025 and the fall of 2024. We spoke with a family about their challenges here. We know that there's a high volume of students and kids that are using this corridor. We need to make sure that it's a safe environment at the intersections that we're talking about. So all of that, the background information, our public meeting, led us to 4 priorities for the entire corridor, the 3 intersections, which are shown on the next slide, which is reduce vehicle speed, simplify intersections, create that safer walking environment, and create multimodal options. These were tested and agreed upon at our public meeting that had over 100 people here at City Hall, here at Town Hall. And at that meeting, we presented design approaches at the 3 intersections that you see on the screen here. And as Elise and Jim both alluded to, we've developed our preferred approaches for Appleton and Oakland that Elise will walk through.
Yeah, so the next slide, I think, is just our lead into these 2. And then if you go one more, these are just screenshots of our design plans. I chose the pavement marking plans just because it's clearest about what is going on. But what we really wanted to highlight was basically the changes that we're making at these intersections are the bump outs, which are highlighted in that peachy orange. And so what we looked at doing was bringing, putting curb extensions on, bringing the curbs out to close up those intersections and those crossings a bit more, just to make them shorter and safer. And then another big thing we looked at is, sorry, that's okay, is like, could we put medians in the middle and therefore give folks a, spot to stop in the middle if there is another car coming. One of the things that Erin mentioned was a lot of cars are traveling at higher speeds through these intersections specifically because it's on that straightaway and they're starting to go downhill. So looking to give folks that spot where they can stop, look again, and make sure that they're able to make it all the way across. Really the only difference between the 2 is on those, I'll say on Appleton, because it's a slightly skewed intersection, looking to accommodate fire trucks. We met with emergency services and we talked about what their concerns were. Essentially the noses out in the middle of the intersection on Oakland, those are going to be mountable curbs, so that way, no problem, a fire truck can get around there. They don't have to worry about making that turn. They should be able to make it anyways on that one because it's a 90-degree intersection, but just to be sure. And then on Appleton, because of the skew, we decided to do like a rumble strip instead of doing those raised islands, just because that turn is tighter because of that skewed intersection there. So that's really the only difference. But you can see what we're doing is we're trying to channel folks so that they are able to cross within the crossing. The crossings are in the direct path of where they should be going across the street. And then also cars are brought away from the center of the road at these areas, so that way they'll hopefully slow down as they approach these intersections. So the next slide, this gets into now the bigger intersection that was not as straightforward, and we had to look at some more things.
Because of the large intersection box shown in red on the screen here, channelizing vehicles like you're able to do at the Park Ave, Appleton and Park Ave, Oakland intersections is much more complicated. If I was to just draw a line and said this is where cars should be driving, the next slide shows them in black, and you see a lot of excess space in white. The next slide's going to show this is empty space. It's not being used for vehicles. It's not being used for pedestrians. It's just causing a more complicated intersection. When intersections are more complicated, pedestrians don't know where they're supposed to cross. Vehicles don't know where they're supposed to look for pedestrians. You're inviting an opportunity for conflict. You're also inviting an opportunity for cars to race up the hill. If you go to the next slide, this is an observation that we've seen, I've experienced. We know that folks in the community have experienced this as well, with cars trying to beat someone who may be turning on Wollaston and go around them to just get up the hill. This empty space is just causing an opportunity for something that we don't want to see happen at this intersection. If you continue on to the next slide, we see that that's in all directions at this intersection. I do want to be mindful of the fact that this intersection at Paul Revere is very close to Mass Ave, with the signal at Mass Ave and Park Ave. And so we did do some observations to understand where are the vehicles queuing back to. Let's make sure that the design that we propose doesn't cause an issue down the road that you'll then need to fix in a later design. So we did want to make sure we accommodated that. All of that being said, we had to come up with a new guiding principles or considerations for this intersection in particular, and the next slide shows that. The first one is to retain parking between Mass Ave and Park Ave. We know that these spaces are being used for the Arlington Heights Business District. Stantec most recently completed a parking study to support the Arlington Heights Future Parking Benefits District and look into that. So we want to make sure that we're continuing to accommodate parking in as much as we're able to in a formalized way. The second is to advance the Complete Streets prioritization plan that you all have supported. This is going to say that there should be protected bicycle facilities between Park Ave at Paul Revere and Mass Ave. So the same stretch that we're talking about, we need parking. We also want to protect the bicyclists here in a way that provides a dedicated space for them to travel. Maintain fire truck and emergency vehicle access, just as Elise mentioned at the other intersections, is critical here. And then you're going to see the designs are going to have some turning restrictions, and we want to make sure that we're continuing to maintain function at the Mass Ave Park Ave intersection if we add vehicles because of turn restrictions, but then also residents on all of the streets in the surrounding area can still get home. So Elise is going to talk through our three options that we have.
Yeah, so I'll go through these options in detail, and then Erin will follow up with some of the details of the restrictions and where we anticipate vehicle movement. So a couple things that I want to bring up as we go through all three of these is there are similarities with all of them. We'll say the core of the intersection where Wollaston, Park Ave, and Paul Revere meet, the design is the same for all of them. When we were getting into this, looking at really trying to make more impactful changes to this intersection, we decided we needed to then look down this last block going into Mass Ave, because it's kind of a ripple effect because of the way Paul Revere is offset from the intersection. It's not your simple, four-way intersection. There's extra legs on this one. So you can see in the middle, we have, at the core intersection, we have islands that we have made mountable. Again, we're trying to restrict, movements, channel folks into their lanes without having them have all that wide space. So making those areas mountable, create it easier for, emergency services, fire trucks, ambulances to be able to get through there in an emergency. That also, again, gives like a refuge area for pedestrians as they cross the street there. Those crossings in that vicinity of Park Ave there at the curve, sight distance is not great and they are very long. So people might already be out in the road before they realize a car is coming down the hill one way or up the hill the other way. So that's one of the reasons for looking to do that and close that up. So the main movements that we are restricting with this option is going to be left turns onto each leg of Paul Revere from Park Ave, and that's because of those medians that we're putting in the middle. When we brought some of these options, and these exact options were not brought to the public, we had variations of these, and at that point, our scope wasn't necessarily to go all the way down to the Mass Ave intersection, but that's kind of what the catalyst that got us to this place. Folks did not seem as hesitant over the restriction, but folks were like, well, why can't we get a left turn at Mass Ave? Because that would alleviate some of the concern of restricting those movements. So that was something that we did not initially look at. We went back and we started looking into that. So all three of these options show a left turn lane added to, I'm going to say, the downhill towards Mass Ave. So folks will be able to take a left onto Mass Ave. And then the other thing that I just want to say is, one thing when we were looking at Park Ave is a lot of folks use Paul Revere also, as well as Park Ave, as a cut through. And so people would do that awkward, straight across, straight through on Paul Revere, or just come down and take a quick left onto Paul Revere. So we think that eliminating some of those conflicts and those movements are what would help create just the safer space here for folks, walking and or cycling. So this first option, and I'll say with the addition of the left turn lane, there is currently angled head-in parking on both sides of Park Ave. So with the left turn lane, we do not have the width to maintain the angled head-on, head-in parking in both directions. So we looked at maintaining it on, I'm going to say, the plan north side or the top side. And then we transitioned on the bottom half, or this plan south, to parallel parking. Because our lanes are now a little narrower because we don't have as much space, we had to slightly shift the angle of those angled parking spots so folks can back out easily and pull in. So we do lose a few spaces on that side. And then obviously converting the angled parking on the planned south side, we are losing parking there because we're converting it to parallel from angled in. There's also a driveway as you get closer to Mass Ave, so that loses some spots at that location too. One of the big differences with this one is this is the option that shows a protected bike lane in both directions. So we're looking at putting the bike lane on the other side of the parking. So the parking will be adjacent to our travel lanes, our vehicular, travel lanes, and then behind the parking lanes will be the bike lanes, and they would be raised in this situation. So the next slide shows our next option. And the only difference really here is that we looked at, could we get any space back or do anything different? Would it help us in any way to put the bike lane on road? And it does not. It's the same exact design. The only difference is that the bike lane would be on road. So it doesn't necessarily match, and of the two, option A would be preferred because we're allowed to separate that. The third option, we looked at, well, what if we flop everything and do the angled parking? If you just go, is it slow? Thanks. If you put the parking on the planned south side as angled head-in, so going downhill on Park Ave, and then we made parallel parking on the planned north side. Similar to the first option, these both show that the bike lane would be separated and therefore behind the parking. So it would be, aligning with the complete streets prioritization. This loses an extra spot again because there's that driveway on the south side, so we can't get as many spots in there. So to maximize the parking in this vicinity, we would recommend the first option, which keeps the angled parking on the top side. One option that we are looking at that Erin is going to run through tonight is looking at doing some more formalized parking on Paul Revere Road to help alleviate some of, this parking loss or what we're looking at as a parking loss in this area. So the next slide is just a summary of the three comparisons. So it shows the number of parking spaces we're able to retain in each option, the parking spaces lost, and then whether it meets the Complete Streets plan. So essentially, we're losing 11 spaces in the first two options, and then there will be the additional loss of one in the third option. The second option doesn't necessarily meet the Complete Streets prioritization plan because it does not have protected bike lanes in both directions. So that's just a quick comparison. Erin's going to run through the remaining, talking about the restrictions, the turning restrictions, and then we can take questions at the end.
We'll come back to parking. When we talk about the turn restrictions because of the median, I want to make it very clear at the beginning, this is only for your general vehicle. Because these are mountable islands, emergency vehicles would be able to make all the moves that they currently make. This is just for your everyday driver, trying to restrict those through vehicles that are using Park Ave and Paul Revere as a cut through. So because the left is going to be restricted, if you're coming down the hill and you live on Paul Revere to the left of Park Ave, so you're trying to make that left going downhill, you can't do that anymore. So there's going to be a need to go through the neighborhood or go down to Mass Ave and make a left and then work your way back up. We recognize that. We wanted to provide some of those graphics to show how you would do that. I know that I'm going to show you slides that are going to say I'm putting more cars on small residential streets. Yes, that is the point. The point is to make it more complicated so people aren't using Paul Revere and Park Ave as a cut through quite as much as they are today. Same for folks that are currently going up Appleton Street from the Mass Ave Appleton intersection, going down Park Ave, Paul Revere, crossing over Paul Revere, and then getting there. That movement is also going away in both directions. We want folks to be using Mass Ave. That's what the road is there for. The roads that of Appleton Street and Paul Revere and Wollaston, these are all residential street. We don't want quite that cut-through traffic. So the next slide's just going to show if you're coming down the hill and you wanted to turn left, what are your other options? And so you are seeing them having folks go through the neighborhood. There's also the opportunity for folks to come up the hill and turn right. That's still an option if Paul Revere remains two-way. We're going to talk about it being one-way in a moment. But this is how folks would get to their house. The next slide just shows the other side of Park Ave. For the Paul Revere residents, they can come up from Appleton Street, as I was just mentioning. We are still maintaining the right turn from Park Ave onto Paul Revere, though. But by adding in that median, we are intentionally removing movements from the intersection, because when we remove movements from the intersection, it gets simpler. It gets easier for pedestrians and drivers to understand what to expect. These yellow graphics are just showing how would you get out of here. So if you had to go to Mass Ave, you can't take that left anymore. Where can you go? And so I'm sending folks down Appleton Street. And then here we are going out in the opposite direction. So I mentioned a one-way Paul Revere. I also mentioned that we're going to come back to parking. Today, Paul Revere does not have formal parking on either side. On the north side of the street, there are no parking signs, but on the south side, those don't exist. And so some folks are parking on the street. They're parking in what's a 5-foot buffer or so, which means that if you're driving down the road and someone's parked there, you gotta go into the other lane to go around it. We could formalize this. We could stripe the parking. You have the space that we can have 2 11-foot lanes. 11 feet is perfectly fine for your general vehicle. And then we have a 9.5-foot parking lane. So very wide parking lane. Someone can get out of the car and have their groceries or their little kid, and they're still not in the middle of the road. So that is an option. What that allows you to do is it, one, formalizes parking so that folks aren't driving into the other lane when they're going down Paul Revere, but it also allows you to get back some of those 11 or 12 parking spaces that you're losing because we're converting the angled parking to parallel. There's an option B that you could put parking on both sides of Paul Revere if you wanted to make it one way. That would add the most parking. That would reduce the need for neighbor coordination because there would be parking on both sides for houses on both sides of the street. But that would add more restrictions for the turning. I do have some diagrams in here that just show what the next slide shows any of the impacts. If you did one-way Paul Revere, you'd want it to be one-way towards Park Ave on this side of the street, just so that the turn restrictions, because of removing the left, isn't then making it so someone can't get home or get to the church. So we have these diagrams. If you want to dive into them, you'll see that you can get to most places that you need to. Paul Revere on the other side of Park Ave, on page south of what you're looking at, there's not a need to make that one way, so I'm not suggesting that right now. But
Yeah, so we wanted to, you know, as Jim said, present this tonight, and then we were looking at potentially additional engagement, and, you know, we'd like to get to a place that we can develop design documents in a similar way that we did the other couple of intersections. Jim, I don't know if you want to close out with anything else, or?
I appreciate that, and I'll just to drive home a point that Ms. Cameron Gilchrist was just making is, you know, we do have the option, if we wanted at some future juncture, to contemplate making Paul Revere one way, but that is not necessarily something we have to consider this evening. We just wanted the board to be aware that should, you know, the parking impacts prove problematic based on experience, it's something we could pull the trigger on later as a potential way to mitigate those impacts, but it doesn't have to be done as part of this final design or as part of construction. It could be done at any point in the future. So I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Okay, a lot of information to digest there. I'll turn to the board for any questions, comments. Mrs. Mahan.
Should I move receipt? Or? Okay, I'll move receipt of this. Second, thank you for, I think I understood almost all of what you were saying. You painted the picture very well, including the people that kind of chicken over one side of Paul Revere across Park Ave, chicken to the other side. Moving, and I do want to say that this plan, when it went up on the select board agenda, there's been a lot of discussion by Arlington residents on a non-Facebook list. A lot of town meeting members. I don't know how many reside in this nexus, actually. And one of the things that was a common theme, one's a school committee member, was why isn't there I think I already know the answer. How about a Rotary where all that is? And I don't comment on things that we're going to discuss at a select board meeting because I don't know how many of us are on at the same time. But I did see that, and I wanted to say the purpose of this plan for myself personally, not that it isn't for my colleagues, also is how to make this area of Park Ave safer for pedestrian, bicyclist, vehicular traffic, in that order. And to me, a Rotary, getting away from how many dimensions you need, if it's 25 feet, 45 feet, things like that. To me, a Rotary in that area basically addresses vehicular traffic first and how to get them through. And I think it makes it less safe for pedestrians and won't talk about e-bikes, it's a whole nother thing, but bicycle traffic. But just know that that question has come up a lot, and I know you have an answer to that. When you say moving forward, and I know you're also aware, and if and when we get to that point, if it is a one-way, when we started the parking overnight parking program. When I first got on the board, the two streets were Highland Ave, Lower Highland Ave, closer to Mass Ave, because of the topography and the houses that have those huge, huge walls that you can't put. And the other one area was what I'll call the lower end of Paul Revere, parallel to Trader Joe's and Walgreens with that rumble strip.
That's a good way to
They
say
have
it.
the same thing, all those stones up there. So moving forward, whatever plan you come up with, on the Paul Revere, I know that that's something that, you know, we'd want sort of that to be sort of one of the first placeholders to how we can retain that for those houses that just have no way of putting in a driveway. So when you say moving forward, I heard a public meeting, and then I heard having conversations with the Park Ave neighbors, and I think all of us, or just about all of us, went to the forum you had down in Town Hall, and I put up at least 7 different Post-it notes on 3 different things. But when you say public meeting or meetings, either to you both or to the manager through the chair, what is that next step? Is it 2 separate ones? Is it a general public meeting and then a Paul Revere neighbor meeting, or what are you anticipating? Understanding there could be a third option as you move forward.
Sure. Thank you, Mrs. Mahan. So for next steps on the slide that was shown previously, we were not indicating to hold yet another public forum style meeting. What we were indicating is that we would do further direct engagement with abutters of Paul Revere as they would be impacted by the turning restrictions that will flow from any one of these concepts, depending on which is chosen.
And would that include, I'll try to make this my last question, the Congregationalist Church?
Yes.
Yes,
Where they're
as an
on
abutter.
Paul Revere.
Yep.
And one of their parishioners, as we all know, was struck, leaving services there.
Yep.
I don't know, I'll just say Linda. I don't know if she wants me to keep saying her full name. So that will also be included. Because that's, again, you know, and I'm not saying my colleagues don't have the same priorities, but I just want to stress that, you know, pedestrian, bicycle, vehicular. So that's it, thanks.
So you made a comment that we don't need to think about making the other side of Paul Revere one-way. What was behind that?
It was that we're already removing movements from the intersection by eliminating the left turn. That what's very, can you put up the graphic per chance? The one with the red box would be helpful. So the big challenge with Paul Revere at Park Ave, at Paul Revere and Wallston is it's a 5-leg intersection, and 5-leg intersections are inherently more
Number 12, maybe? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, 12 sounds right. 5-legged intersections are inherently more complicated because you don't know where to look.
Keep going.
And because we're removing Paul Revere Road north of Park Ave for the most part from the intersection now, because you're not able to turn left into it, it's mostly a right in, right out kind of situation. Paul Revere on the other side, it's fine to maintain it as a right in, right out as well. And so we don't need to make that one way right now. But we can look at it, and we do have graphics that show what that would look like as well. So
Yeah,
it could
I
be
was curious
considered down
in
the
the
road.
context of, you know, parking lots and creating parking and where it would be the most useful. And this is in my nexus, is that the word we're using if we live nearby? So this is, you know, a lot of folks who are coming in, I think, from Park Ave will either be parking in the area that we're talking about tonight, or come down to the right and park on Davis, which is parallel to Park Ave.
Yeah.
It's my understanding that they can't really park on Paul Revere on this side where the condominium building is, because that's marked no parking. So all I was saying is that I get what you're saying about the simplification of the intersection, and that we've sort of hit a point where we're more comfortable with that. But it seems like the one-way option, which then creates the opportunity for parking on both sides on that shorter block, may be something we just want to understand in the context of, do we do that, or do we take this very long stretch of Paul Revere and make that one-way?
We can provide those graphics as well. We did study it on both sides. Just as Jim said, Paul Revere Road being one-way can be a second option, something that you do down the road. The same can be true for one side of Park Ave or the other. As long as it continues to be that it's one way towards Appleton Street, so it's either one way towards Park Ave on, I like calling it Lower Paul Revere, or one way away from Park Ave, that's fine. It's when it switches in the opposite direction that you're starting to restrict too many movements, but it works.
Okay. And given that I think we may be reaching out to folks on Park Ave and beyond, and one of the things you've mentioned is there's sort of this inherent issue of people using other streets as cut-throughs. If you have some sort of software or data that helps us kind of understand that, because one of the things that landed really big at the public forums was people understanding that this is just a highway between Winchester and Belmont, right?
Yeah.
So, hey, people are sacrificing, but it's not you, right? It's,
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to understand as we talk about, hey, who's coming down Park Ave, down Paul Revere, is that how you get to Lexington without having to wait at the light, right?
Yeah.
Any data that you have or nice graphics that help us understand that. I think that would help when we go to the community and say, hey, you are making a slight sacrifice, but if you feel unsafe, we're going to get rid of a lot of that sort of zip-through traffic that you're worried about.
I will say that it's about 100 vehicles that we're dislocating by restricting that left turn. Assuming all of them go to Mass Ave. But if you live on Paul Revere, you are going to take that left onto Wallstead and you're going to snake your way through the neighborhood. That number of folks that are actually going to Paul Revere is so low that our model is not reliable when we get to that number. So I'm confident that we know that about 70% of vehicles that are using Park Ave are pass-through vehicles. That's what we presented at the forum. The software that we use reports that in high confidence. Once we look at Paul Revere alone, that confidence drops, and I would not be confident using it.
We would need to do like an origin destination type study to determine.
We would need to go and watch the cars again. But I know you've done that before, so.
Yeah.
Joe, if you want to go out.
Different job every time I see you, but
Yep.
it's okay.
So I hope that made sense.
And we can definitely
to the
prepare
board.
graphics. We do have, I think, some of them from previously as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to feel like a trade-off to people, and to just
It
make
is.
sure
Yeah.
that they really understand, depending on what they value, this may be in your best interest to give a little to get a lot. I think that would go a long way.
Did I hear that I need to make a motion to designate you as the guy to go out there and stay out there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
License
Joe,
plates or something, yeah.
I think Joe has set up cameras before in order to do this.
I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to speak out of turn.
Sorry, joking.
Yes, all set.
Thank you for this good work. Ms. Mark, could you advance 4 or 5 slides till we get to the Park Avenue queues? That one. I understand all 3 of these options would eliminate what a lot of people like to do, which is to turn left on Paul Revere as a shortcut, because it takes a while to wait at the light to turn left. So Trader Joe's, Walgreens customers, and I'll admit that I'm one of those, make that turn very carefully and very, with some trepidation, because, and then if it backs up enough like this, you can't do it. And then you're just waiting for conflicts, right? So it is certainly awful, and I don't mind losing that. But my question is, have you studied what will happen to this queue if you could no longer turn on Paul Revere Road, and what the wait times and the overall effect on traffic flow for people turning left on Mass Ave from Park Ave will look like?
Yeah, so the solution to that is creating that left turn lane. So you're adding more.
That absorbs it.
You're adding more storage. There are also slight modifications to the signal that we've discussed with Mike Rademacher and team, and we've provided that that will help the intersection flow a little bit better. It is a fairly complicated intersection for a driver approaching it, especially one that doesn't use it that often or wants to use it the way they want to, because there's not defined lanes, but there's like 20 feet, which is enough for 2 cars to go side by side. So our recommendations do include channelizing that intersection as well, using paint, just to help guide vehicles. But there are slight intersection modifications to process these cars.
And I will just put this out there, during the peak hour of the day, there will still be likely a large backup. We can't eliminate that. And that left turn lane is not long enough to accommodate that, but it's long enough, we made it as long as we could, that it would help generally allow cars to be able to get over into that lane that do want to take that left and absorb some of these other cars.
Got it.
And I'm just going to add one more, going back to that, we know that this is a cut-through area. We're going to slow down some Arlington residents as a result of this, but you're going to be slowing down folks that are using this as a cut-through and using it as a highway, which may deter them from using it quite as frequently. But the intersections will always operate the way they do because folks are willing to sit and wait for them, so.
No, I mean, it's going to be an awkward intersection, but I think this will make it a less dangerous one. One side note I want to make is, because I am a cyclist and I visit Arlington Heights businesses quite often on my bike, and it is terrifying in both directions to go down the hill towards Mass Ave with an angled parking, and then to start up the hill. I do have an e-bike, but it didn't go very fast because of the hill, and the perils are manifold, because especially coming up the hill towards Park Circle, you're trying to power up to get up the hill. You have to worry about cars backing out from the angle parking. You have to worry about people cutting you off into Paul Revere and Wallaston. And it is one of those situations where I hope nothing happens before we can do this, but it's something like, I think if I ever get creamed, that's where it's going to be, right? So I really love that you were able to find a way with these options, except for B. It doesn't look like there's any real advantage to B, honestly. To take those bikes out of at least the danger zone, so that you're not going to get backed up into when people are leaving parking. So thank you for that. And I think that will be great for businesses, because a lot of those, like going to roasted granola, cookie time. Cookie time. Oh my gosh. Because the nice thing about that is, you ride your bike, you feel like you can earn those calories. Right? Cookie. But I think that'll be good. It'll encourage people to feel safer and be safer doing that, and still have a reasonable amount of car access. So I was excited about that as well. I did have a question, Mr. Chair. Does the town manager want the board? And I know we're missing one member tonight, but how is the town manager feeling about getting a vote for the sense of the board, or do you just want an informal sense about these design options? Did you just want a discussion tonight? What's your?
I mean, we're presented with 3 different designs, and I'm going to have some comments. So, I mean, I'd rather have a vote on a specific plan, but I mean, I'm really one person here, as opposed to, the plans that can change. Like, we're not voting to change the traffic rules and order, or to give the go-ahead to do any of these plans today.
Right.
I think it's my preference to just have it to receive and get comments from the board, because I don't think there's anything specific to vote on, but I'm certainly open to what your comments are here.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Helmuth. Where we do have 3 options for consideration, and we don't want to expend, I guess, what I'll call time, money, or resources, advancing all of them to a further stage. We're hoping, even if it's not a formal vote, if the board indicated an interest in, a particular option, that would be the one we would further to a final design and use to further engage the community. I will note, as we heard, all 3 options introduce essentially the same turning restrictions. All we're really talking about is on which side of Park Ave the parking impacts would be focused on and whether we want to protect the bike lane or not. So by and large, the concepts do sort of introduce the same things with some minor tweaks, and just wanted to see if there was consensus on which direction we should continue to further develop to a final design that could be, again, shown to the board towards the end. We just didn't want to get too far ahead without getting feedback.
Before I voice any opinions, I want to hear what all members, including the chair, have to say.
Yeah. So, first of all, probably should have done this as two separate agenda items, but on Oakland and Appleton, love it. I think that's what we've ever since there was an accident a couple years ago. I live on Hillside. My kids go. One goes to Audison, the other one, but they both go down to. They use this corridor all the time. They go down the Heights to eat with their friends. So, and we always tell them, go make sure it's a signalized intersection right now. Right? It's like I don't care if there's a crosswalk. We have the flashing beacons now. Yeah. Which has been a major improvement. Everything we've done has been an improvement, but even at the signalized intersections, we're just like assume that the driver's just going to be a moron that's going to go through the light, and that's unfortunate, but that's sort of what we see here. In the past couple of years, with the speed limit and the enforcement, again, thank you to APD, there's been a lot of enforcement on Park Ave. Some people think it's too slow, too bad. When you're going 25 miles an hour, you can feel that it's a lot safer going down the road. And so those two, I think, are great, especially at Oakland, where, one of the biggest dangers is the car stops for somebody in the crosswalk, and somebody else goes through the parking lane around them, and it's like, so now that they can't go through the parking lane, that's going to be a huge safety improvement. And again, will it take a little longer for someone to drive down the road? Too bad. So those are great. I like just about everything I see at the lower part. I use the left turn. I go to Trader Joe's. I don't consider it a cut through. I just consider it the way because that's where they are. Yeah. It's not, a cut through, I sort of think of, you're going through to avoid traffic, and I just wonder if there's I definitely agree that going from upper Paul Revere to lower Paul Revere, if that's the way we're describing it, if there's a way to just say either left or right or make it so they can't go across. I don't particularly think the left turn, and I'm just one voice, and other people can have different opinions. I don't think the people that take the left that are already on Park Ave are particularly causing a lot of safety concerns. And, for me, I live on Hillside. If I can't take that turn, I'm not going to sit in Park Ave and go down to the light. I'm going to go down Hillside and through the neighborhood. And again, if this board and the professionals think that that's a safer way to do it, I think, having a controlled, allowing people to still take the left turn down Paul Revere and, having some speed mitigation on Paul Revere. Again, for me, it's just the way as opposed to a cut through. But that said, there's a lot of safety issues here. So if the professionals say that that's what needs to be done in order to make it safe, then I can accept that. But I do, at least in my experience with this area, think that you can still incorporate a left turn there on Paul Revere and still make it safe. That's just a food for thought on that.
Sure.
The parking, I never like to, I'm always a voice to not lose parking spaces, but I do understand the restrictions of this area. It is, when I go down there, it is always full. But those head-in parking spaces going down Park Ave create a little chaos anyways, like Mr. Helmuth said, with bicyclists coming through. But even, there's always a queue there, and people are trying to back out, and they can't back out, and then they're like bombing out. So I think it's actually ripe to change those two parallel parking.
Yeah.
And keep the head-in on the other side. I think the protected bike lane on the side where it's head-in is fine. I maybe it's just too new for me. I don't love the protected bike lane on parallel parking. I know they've done it in Lexington and it's in Cambridge. And for me, especially where cyclists are going down the hill, and if unless you're riding your brakes, you're gonna come down at a fair amount of speed. And where there's something about the passenger side, there's kids getting out, you don't expect cyclists to be kind of coming through on that side, even if there's a lane there. I think when you're on the driver's side, there could be a car there, could be a cyclist. So for me, again, I think that creates conflicts with, you have kids that are getting out of like if I'm parking on a main road, I'm telling my kids to get out on the passenger side. They're not looking to see if somebody's coming down the bike lane. So again, I'm one voice and I'm not the expert, but I've always been a little hesitant with the protected bike lanes in the parallel parking spaces. But again, that's just me. We're here for comments. But other than that, I think it all looks good. I think it, addresses a pretty dire need. The problem with this intersection, as you said, is it's just too big. It's too much space. There's too much space for people to do things that they're not supposed to. And I think this goes a long way to helping that. And if we have to drive slower and sit in a little more traffic and, lose a little parking, it's not ideal, but it's something that we need to do to make this area safer. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you.
Mrs. Solomon?
I had a question through you to the town manager. We're probably not going to make a plan here and go install it next year, right? And Mr. Hurd brought up a few interesting points. It would be interesting to find out what are some things here that we can test, evaluate. I know when we do the Halloween stuff at ACMi, I don't know if they fully close that entrance to Paul Revere, but when it's popular, that gets packed. And Mr. DeCourcy's not here. Before I was on the select board, I actually reached out to him because the telephone pole across my street was coming down. He helped with that. Appleton Street was shut down from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and the world didn't end, right? But nobody looked at it and said, oh, here's a great way to test to see if we close this street, if it'll work out. So it may be interesting if you all can kind of think about what are some of the things where it may even help us to understand the impact of this. And on a busy weekday, if APD could stand there for a couple hours and shut something down and we could see what chaos ensues, that would help us to sort of have a little bit more confidence in saying, yeah, this will work, or we should rethink that before we pour concrete, right?
Olive?
What's your timeline?
So for this particular intersection, we don't have a clear-cut timeframe because in large part, the MWRA is planning some capital improvements in this vicinity. In this entire intersection, it is littered with subsurface infrastructure, which they own and which may need to be upgraded. So we are, in the interest of trying to continue to have things move on this intersection, what I was hoping to do is reach a final concept that, in fact, I would hope we could learn from and potentially deploy some quick build strategies, but we need to be able to do that to a sort of 100% design or close to it, but we would do so in a manner and with strategies, be it bollards, rubber, other solutions that exist now that you can have laser cut to your dimensions to implement traffic islands. But in order to really explore some of those options, we were hoping to have a design that gets furthered in its level of engineering detail where we might be able to deploy some things that we would put out there perhaps for a period of time longer than just a day where something might appear like a detour, like us closing down a road, but where we could message a change in traffic patterns, maybe do something over the course of a week or 2 weeks and do some data collection with it. But that is something that we have talked about exploring in terms of, because we don't know when we'd be able to do the full civil construction and that might impact things underground that we might pursue, similar to what we did at Mass Ave at Appleton, doing some changes above the surface and at a lower cost to start to implement some of the safety and accessibility improvements, but also learn before we invest hundreds of thousands, if not, potentially $1 million. We haven't worked out a cost estimate on this one, but that's sort of a long way of saying no discrete timeline yet until we learn more from MWRA about what other work is going to be happening here in the near future.
Mr. Helmut.
It just occurs to me, I think, I'm going to guess that there might be a consensus here on at least either option A or option B, and that I don't think anyone has spoken in robust defense of those god-awful ankle parking spaces going downhill, to editorialize a bit. So if that's the case, and if other members want to confirm that or not, they could give the town manager at least some guidance. I think Mr. Hurd raises a really good question that a lot of other people will raise too. I know as a cyclist, I'll take the parking protected bike lane anytime, and I like those when I ride in Cambridge. I know as a motorist, though, it is a change, because I drive too. I drive more often than I bike. So I think that, and I don't need an answer for this now, but I think as we go through this, helping the community, helping the board understand how community adjusts to a parking protected bike lane, what it means in that particular location with the downhill and the entry and how the bikes are going to enter. I do want to make sure that that's safe. For me as a cyclist, for folks as the drivers, because yeah, you can get doored from the other side too, right? So again, I don't need an answer for that tonight, but I think that as just as guidance as this moves forward, that might be a way to help the decision making between those two options, perhaps.
May I just clarify that? And
Sure.
it would need to be studied regardless, but it is at sidewalk level. So it is a raised bike
Oh, so
lane
it's raised.
downhill.
Okay,
So
yeah.
it's
So it's
on
like
the,
the track.
it's up at the curb.
Oh,
It's not the ones like on Mass Ave in Cambridge where you're like opening the door and there's the
Oh,
bollard
great.
and then the bike lane. That doesn't impact, like your kid is still crossing the bike lane,
Yep.
but that's what we're showing on the plans, not the
Thank
Mass
you.
Ave Cambridge version.
Okay, so this is, and that's the case for both options, so for the other side as well?
Both
Yes.
sides,
Okay.
yes. I don't think I said that clearly.
Okay, yeah,
I
no, thank you.
apologize.
I will say, Mr. Chair, just for what's worth, sign me up for option A. I think that would be, that's the gold standard for cycling safety. It also eliminates the risk of getting doored from the other side, and it makes things easier safer for the cars too, for the kids coming on the other side, so, yeah. That's I'll just put that out there and others can see what they want to say.
So cars would still be parked on a curb?
Yes.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And
And is there some separation between the curb and the actual lane?
Yes.
That,
Yeah, it's about 2 feet.
I retract my comments. That's fine.
it's still worth
It's
bringing,
still-
it's
I
still
mean, I
worth bringing
think
up.
For me, like, I was envisioning, like what you see in like Lexington and Cambridge, where it's just this kind of tight little area where you're between a curb, where the bicyclists are kind of in this like small space.
Yeah.
And like my son, who would never in a million years look, just opening the door and somebody like running into the door. So if there's enough space, essentially that where somebody opens the door, the cyclist can still get by, then I think if there's a legitimate safety reason for the bicyclist, then I think that's fine.
It's also just worth adding, this from Wollaston to Mass Ave will need to be signed and paved in a way that encourages slow speeds for all wheeled users. Bikes will be going slower here. They are going to be, because the bike lane is going to be slightly narrower than it is elsewhere on Park Ave. That's going to make them go slower, just as the cars will drive slower. There's treatments that can be done to the bike lanes to help slow bikes so that they know, hey, there's cars here. People will be getting in and out, but that's the envision of this.
Do you find that when you have the protected bike lanes, all the cyclists use it? As opposed, I don't mean to be like cute with this, but as opposed to just saying, all right, well, I don't want to drive up on the sidewalk over here. I want to keep it, they just stay in the lane of traffic.
I can't say all cyclists, but
Yeah.
for, I'd say most, besides like your spandex warriors.
Yep. Okay.
The bros, don't get me
Yeah.
started.
Like most folks are going to be using this.
Sorry if there's
We
any
also-
bros up here.
We also heard that people don't bike on Park Ave because it's a hill, but when we provide the higher quality bicycle facility that invites more bikers. So,
Okay. And that's option A?
yeah, option A or option C. Option B does not provide that level of protection.
This is mine.
I'm assuming, or maybe I shouldn't, in terms of this area, I'm picturing in my head like 15, 22 manholes.
Yeah.
And am I close?
I mean, there's a lot.
Something like that.
I didn't
It'd be
actually
up to
count them
30.
all yet,
Something
but
like that.
there's a lot.
And I'm thinking what's under there. And I know in terms of what's under there and all the different domains of what that could be in terms of town pipe, state pipe, what utility, et cetera. Has that been taken into account in terms of, because it seems like right now we're at A or C, and I definitely would be A, or is that something, because that also can affect the cost of the project also, and could even change it to an option D. So what I'm saying is have those 30 manholes, what's underneath there, what that means, been taken into these plans, or no, that will be going forward? Because that's where I'd say, I'm comfortable with moving receipt and endorsing option A, but I think we really, unless you tell me we already know what those 30 manholes, what's underneath there, that's going to change what this project looks like from time to do it, cost to do it, et cetera. So has that already been done, or no, that's moving forward once we decide to move forward?
That's moving forward. We're going to look into that more. We know the utilities out there. We did get record plans that were available. It will likely impact potentially the design of the curb line. There are other things we can look at when there are vaults underground, what you can do to, with curb to put that on top. So that's kind of the next phase that I think Mr. Feeney was getting at, that we're going to get into that and need to also discuss with the MWA if they're making changes, if certain things aren't going back exactly in place of where they are today. That's all stuff that we need to work through.
But the manholes don't impact A, B, or C because the manholes are all within the red intersection.
No, I'm saying what's underneath.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the
Yeah.
actual manholes.
Okay.
When
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
doing, designing the project, you know what I'm saying? You need to take that, whether that's an old rusted town pipe
Yeah.
that's going to blow, and whether that's an MWRA feeder pipe that they just put in back in 1996, or they put it in 2004, 2007, because I know they, so that, but anyway, so I'd be happy to go with A, but I think it's going to change because of those. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I would say with the clarification on the bike lane, I think A is fine. I'll just and this is a argument that I don't think I'll win, but I mean, I think the dangerousness of Paul Revere is people cutting straight across. I think really no one would be on Paul Revere to go up Wollaston because it just disappears into essentially nothing. If someone's taking a left on Paul Revere, up Park Ave, there's just other ways to go. You go up Oakland, there's plenty of ways to circumvent that. And I'm just wondering if there's a way to keep the left on Paul Revere and just make upper Paul Revere right turn only. So you can't go left, you can't go straight across, you can't. And that's just my thought, if there's a way to do it and still make it safe. Again, I just think, I'm again differentiating cut through versus just the stuff I go to is over there, right? As opposed to, and I think it's going to, if you restrict that left turn, it's going to cause a fair amount of extra queuing for people that would be going down that way. And like I said, it sends people through the neighborhoods, which is it good, is it bad? It's not for me to say, but I mean, that's just my thought to see if the people designing it could come up with something that could keep that. If not, I can eat it in the name of safety. But
We can take another look at it if there is a way to preserve it. Just for you to know, when I say cut through traffic, I mean people that are coming from not Arlington and going to not Arlington, so not residents trying to go to Trader Joe's.
We understand that's your way and how you would
Yes,
go,
but
we're not trying to kick you out of here. It's more of,
it's the 70% of folks that are using Park Ave that aren't Arlington destined.
Yeah.
So, but we can definitely take a look to see if there's a way to preserve that left turn. I think we did, but we can definitely go back to it and look.
Yep.
We're still at that point.
Would you like a motion to endorse?
I will move to endorse option A, but I think town manager's trying to get somebody's attention, or were you good, sir?
Sure. Thank you. If I could, just briefly, with respect to our experience with bike lanes in town, I will note we probably wouldn't expect, at least during inclement weather or during snow events, that, you know, people who are still cycling are going to favor the roads because they're plowed. So we should have that expectation if we're introducing, you know, raised sidewalk level bike lanes, that we won't be able to conduct the same level of snow removal operations contemporaneously with the road. So there would be an expectation, at least during those significant snow events, that there will be a delay in clearing snow there, which for those folks who are still diehard and cycling in those conditions are likely to be in the road, to your earlier point. And then I just want to note that, you know, part of the beauty of having a preferred concept and knowing what we want to go where, which I appreciate the board's feedback on option A, is then we can start to sketch it out and then say, here's what the town is looking to do. MWRA, your planning work, other utility companies are planning work. What might this impact? What changes might this necessitate? Or, if it's simply access to existing infrastructure that can't be moved and needs to remain, okay, can we elevate, that manhole cover or that access point to be at a new curb level, so we can start to have those more, what I call descriptive discussions based on the town having a desired plan and achieving a certain degree of goals, but it's, hard to provide our utility partners with anything substantive until we have a chosen sketch to provide them. So I thank the boards for their feedback.
I made my motion.
We have a motion
By
to
second,
endorse.
not say anything else.
You can.
No other rules. Just had a quick question. So Mary, who I think is more closer up to you, her son was hit crossing at Oakland. And I know we kind of focused a lot on the one intersection. In the designs, one of the things that I think a lot of us see is that there's so much width that two cars can be crossing a single crosswalk going in the same direction. Does this eliminate that?
Yeah, that is one of the reasons we wanted to add those medians in the middle of Park Ave to close it up. So that way there isn't that space
Okay.
for them to do that.
Yeah, so it's now
Is that like 10 plus the 5 plus the 1.5?
16,
Yeah.
it's like 18 and a half feet. Two cars could do that if they drove in the bike lane, but it'll be striped in a way that's not, and it's much narrower now. It's much narrower in this design than it is now.
Okay. All right.
Well, I envision some guy trying to still drive over the curb to get around, but
Probably.
yeah, it's just gonna hurt his car a little bit and still have to slow down to do it.
Yeah, as long as it's slower, that's fine. But yeah, I second Mr.
People are all in a rush. I don't know where they're going, but they're all in a rush to get there.
Yeah.
All right, so did you second?
Second, yes.
Good? Good? All right, we have a motion to endorse Plan A by Mr. Helmuth, seconded by Mr. Solomon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous vote.
Thank you very much for your comments.
We're cruising right along in this agenda.
Look at that.
We were.
We were.
All right.
The hard stuff.
Item 18, discussion, potential comments on draft updated combined sewer overflow control plan. Mrs. Bond.
I want to thank my colleagues because we've had lots and lots of meetings about this. But what I'm hoping for tonight is that I'd like to make a motion to approve that the select board direct the town manager and town council to create potential comments on the draft updated combined sewer flow overflow control plan, and for the final draft to be presented to this board at our September 14th meeting to hopefully be voted upon, to make it in time for the comments which are due I believe. I've been saying September 15th, but they're September 30th.
I have it as September 28th, but
September 28th.
very close to that.
So if that's okay with everybody, also with the caveat that any directed comments in terms of what individual members would like to see in our draft comments, or waiting to see what the draft comments are and then add to it, that's fine. I don't think we need to discuss it here tonight because we've done it. Not that anyone, if you want to, but I just wanted a formal vote on that. So that would be my vote. My motion, sorry.
Second?
Yeah, second then, just, I think this is implied, but I'll have the best be able to have input if I can see suggested things and, do a red line or do comments on it in time to be considered for the final. But I'm very happy for the board to do that.
Yeah, so if we could, if I can, I'll work with the chair and the manager and town council of getting the draft before, hopefully even the Thursday, before the 14th, if we can get it closer to like the earlier part of the week.
That'd be fabulous.
With the caveat that something else could be added at the end, for that very reason. So, thank you.
All right. We have a motion as articulated by Mrs. Mahan, seconded by Mr. Helmuth. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous vote. Item 19, temporary loading zone at 204 Mass Ave. Mr. Feeney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So before the board this evening is a request that came in to the Office of the Select Board from Quebrada seeking to introduce a loading zone in front of their business property on Mass Ave, specifically at 208 Mass Ave. In your packet this evening, you'll see comments received back from both the police department and the engineering division outlining what I'll call specific concerns with the request. From my perspective, I just thought I would offer, I would not advise the board to consider any permanent parking changes at this time. As the board is aware, the relocation of the bus stop is temporary due to building construction and therefore should not be the driver of any permanent parking changes. I think it's worth acknowledging at the same time that we probably all would agree in hindsight that the stop was moved prematurely based on the delays with building construction. And frankly, we do not know yet exactly when we'll be able to safely return the stop to the other side of the intersection, but it will be returned at some point when we can safely do so. So with that, it's just not great practice to consider making a permanent change based on what is albeit an extended but somewhat temporary condition. And further, based on this request, we did not have the opportunity to, engage the other businesses on that block who may value having as much so-called front door parking as possible for their customers and the use of passenger vehicles, which would be sort of restricted if we were to designate a loading zone for commercial vehicles. So that engagement has not taken place, but I'm confident that's something we could undertake in the future following the removal, the return of the bus stop to the far end of the intersection and return to what I'll call normal intersection operations if the board desired in the future. Thank you.
Great. Turn to the board for any questions, comments, or motions. Mrs. Mahan.
I have a question. Are you asking for are we discussing and considering a temporary loading zone for a designated amount of time? Or would it be all day long? Nobody could park there at all unless they were loading or unloading from Quebrada? Or would it be that it's a loading zone for any of those businesses? So is there a time? Is it all day? And I'm assuming it can't be just for Quebrada. It has to be for all the businesses there. Those would be my questions.
Thank you, Mrs. Mahan. That is correct. Once this board designates a loading zone, which it has done in a few instances, it is open and available to the public. usually there's a stipulation that it be used by commercial vehicles and that it be time limited. So usually they are 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or a half hour. I would have to confirm what the other use restrictions are for similar loading zones in Arlington Center, but all that to say, it's usually for commercial parking, could be used by any business, and it is intended to be short-term parking.
And right now, the vote, if I so moved, would not define what the temporary time is, because we don't know how much longer that project that's just ridiculous on Lake Street and Mass Ave, don't get me started. So it's a temporary with no designation of what temporary is.
Correct. We don't have an end time yet. We don't necessarily have to wait for the project to be fully complete. We have to wait for the project, essentially the building to be out of the ground and at a stage where at least overhead protection for pedestrians could be restored in order to regain access to that sidewalk. But we don't have a specific date for that yet.
Okay. And I assume in the request, it's in front of 208, but your recommendation is in front of 204.
So to be clear, my recommendation this evening was that we do not entertain the request. But if the board were willing to entertain Gabrada's request, it would be, in essence, at the first available parking block or parking opportunity that is outside of the what is now a shared right turn and bus stop lane.
So you're not recommending this, correct?
Correct.
I'd make a motion for no action.
All right, we have a motion to not, do you have any comments?
Second.
I mean, I think that I certainly feel for the business. I'm not sure the bus stop, because there's no parking, that the bus stop is, the bus stop has caused some issues, but I don't think the bus stop is causing the issues that are at play here, because it's not affecting the parking. What's the time limit on those spaces right now in front of that, call it the Capitol block there?
I believe it's 2-hour parking in that vicinity.
Yeah. I mean, I think within the bounds of the current request, I would agree. It's not really feasible. I mean, you go up and down Mass Ave and everyone's got complaints about loading. I mean, that's why there's trucks parked in the middle of Mass Ave, and we have that with Starbucks. We have that in the center, where we really haven't been able to figure out a good solution for that. It's just one of the constraints of living in a town like Arlington. I could either, again, I'm fine supporting Mrs. Mahon's motion. If we wanted to look at something to, I think if, the economic development coordinator goes down that block and just talks to the businesses, and there's, more than one specific business that thinks that there's an issue that's being created, and we kind of look back at another solution, which could be for that. I know, some people use that to go into the Capitol Theater to watch a movie, but, if 15-minute parking would make more sense for the businesses on the Capitol block, because just about all those businesses have a fair amount, whether it's 15 or 30 minutes, have a fair amount of rollover. Other than maybe Auto Pizza, where people would stay a little longer, but, I think all those businesses could benefit from shorter parking right there. And, for the Capitol, they're gonna have to go beyond those spots anyways to fill the theater. Then, the other option is to just look a couple spaces down, not even, I think in general, having a loading zone on the Capitol block would be difficult. I mean, if you said, all right, we're gonna go down, and they're gonna have to wheel the boxes down 50 feet, then you could look at that. But I'm inclined to support Ms. Mahan's motion with the idea that maybe we could do a little more follow-up with the businesses, or have, town staff look at whether or not it makes more sense to have shorter parking in that one particular area. And I think that's one of the things that the Parking Advisory Committee is going to tackle within our studies of East Arlington and Arlington Heights, is we kind of look at in general about all of these parking issues. So I am fine with Ms. Mahan's motion. I could support that tonight with the idea that maybe it has provoked some thoughtful study to see if there's a way to kind of retain the parking that all these businesses need for their clients. You know, I grew up in this area, and there's always a lot of turnover in these storefronts because of the parking. So it could be that, you know, we take a look at this area to see if there's a solution that we come up with, but I don't think what's being proposed is really a starter for anybody. Mr. Helmuth.
Yeah, I just want to voice my support for Mr. Hurd's thoughtful addition to that. I think that that is worth doing. I would also maybe not too seriously suggest that a loading zone going into a good product could also be useful for people getting croissants coming out and stopping for less than 15 minutes. But I think you're right. Just see what's really happening, see how the other businesses feel about it. I also appreciate the comments from our department heads and just pointing out some of the concerns with this. So I did want to voice support for the business, but I think this is a good course for tonight.
All right, we have a motion for no action by Mrs. Mahan, seconded by Mr. Helmuth. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Unanimous vote for no action.
Just like town meeting.
All right, that brings us to item number 20, discussion and vote on street overnight parking permits. So we put this on just because we found out a couple weeks ago that the parking permits were out. You know, we had created this pilot, which has now become a real, long-term plan. And it was always the idea that we wanted to kind of test how many permits were needed. We wanted to make it so people could have them, but not have so many that, floods the streets and kind of flies in the face of, the feedback that we've gotten from residents over the years, and, some of the pushback that we got even initially when we instituted the overnight parking passes. It was always set up so, I know, Mr. Solomon, you had some questions about this. The discussions, and we had many, it was a long development, the overnight parking pilot was, just historically, there's been ballot questions in Arlington, whether or not we wanted to remove the restriction on overnight parking. They always fail. The town in general has wanted to uphold the overnight parking ban. There was historically, if someone had no parking whatsoever, then they could apply to get a permit. So their property had no driveway, they could apply to get a permit. We only gave them in very specific situations. So we created the pilot just to see if it would work to just allow people to get overnight parking passes without having to show that they had no parking at all. It was definitely intended to restrict one car per household. The original intent was to have it in front of people's houses, but I don't think there's any way to police that. The fee, and this is all for discussion, and this is just a select board policy, so with one vote, we could change anything about the overnight parking policy. The fee was higher in order to make sure that only people that needed it had it, because even when we did the overnight parking pilot before, there was a number of people that reached out and said they didn't want more cars in Arlington. They didn't want to promote, the use of additional vehicles for, myriad of reasons. So tonight, I think one thing that we were always in agreement is that, we set it, I think it originally 125. At one point, we increased it to 175.
175.
And so now, and I know Ms. Gallagher's here as well, it's a good conversation with the treasurer's office for us to know if we increase the limit as we approach, not having enough permits to meet demand, so we can make sure that people that need it and fall within the criteria can have those permits. So really, we're now maxed out, has been discussed, so I think it's, you know, since we've had the permit program, there hasn't been any major issues or safety issues that I'm aware of that have been, and the town manager, I'm sure, can back this up, have been created by allowing more overnight parking. So it probably makes sense to increase that to a level. It's just, what level is that be, would we want that to be? Is there, you know, it could be to 250, it could be to 300, whatever the board decides, and that's what we'll go with. And we can amend the fee, we can amend any, we can, I'm not sure we can get rid of the policy now since we're throwing all those out there, but I'm just opening up to the board for any comments, discussion, motions.
Yeah, I mean,
Solomon?
Well,
Mrs. Mahan,
just an
you-
easy question in the beginning. I think there's to order stickers, if this is the admin clerical in me, it's a minimum order of 100, isn't it? Correct. So just so you know that, it's a minimum order of 100 anyways. We have 15, 175 is out, we have 15 stickers down there. So if we place the minimum order at 100, that would give us 290. What's the next thing?
Aren't we out of stickers?
I thought we had,
are sold out of stickers, correct?
oh, I thought we had 15 down there.
So, should I?
Yes.
Yeah, you can come up to the
Oh, it
mic.
doesn't matter, I'm just trying to I'm trying to round off the number from 290 to 300. Go ahead, sorry. I thought I saw somewhere 15 stickers were down there, sorry.
Lynn Gallagher, Treasurer Collector again. Yes, we have now 14 physical stickers. We keep a small batch on hand because there are reasons that people need a new sticker. Someone has it, they get in a car accident, they buy a new car. We don't consider that a transfer because you're not really transferring it to a new person, you're just putting it on your new car. So we always want to keep a few on hand, and in fact, we just used one today. So we have 14 physical stickers left. If we are to order more, the vendor that we use, Ryden, it has a minimum order of 100, and it would take approximately 2 to 3 weeks for them to come in. So those are just sort of the physical constraints that we're faced with if we expand the permits right now. Certainly we can do that. Again, we could then open it up after that time period.
What's their next minimum order, or it doesn't matter after? You know,
Doesn't matter after that.
Okay.
So,
And just to clarify for the public, it's, you hold 14, but they're not ones that you could just give out because there's already 175 that are out
Correct.
there. And that's this board's policy.
yes.
Yeah.
So when we order, we order a few more just because, you know, you can, as I said, you need to be able to replace them on occasion for people who,
Yeah.
you know, bought them earlier on, so.
And hypothetically, if we increased it 75 and you ordered 100, the other ones would just sit there
Correct.
in the event that we increase it again.
Yeah, just a couple of things or a couple of ways to look at it. One is that we seem to have missed that we hit a threshold, right? And that's put a lot of people out.
Yep.
In terms of, you know, financial or just the stress of it, right? And it, you know, we can relieve that tonight, but I'm wondering what the process would be going forward. Do we just, you know, hang people out for 2 months until somebody comes in loud enough and says, hey, like, we got a problem here, and then we up it? And then long-term, I think, and the ARB people are much more into the details of things, but we have some new zoning that has some new permissions for parking, and we are inherently creating potentially some demand for additional parking. So I'd be curious, I don't know, like if we get together with them every year, every couple of years, or reach out to them, so maybe they could inform us on, hey, here's kind of what you might need to be thinking about a year or two in the future, given what the base zoning is today and what it may be in the future. And that way we can be a little bit more proactive about thinking, like, when do we make policy jumps and why?
So I think the first question is an easier answer.
Yeah.
The second one takes a little bit of thought. And I don't think it needs to be a policy other than, it's just treasurer's office talking to the select board's office and say, when there's 25 left.
Exactly.
Then they just notify us. Ashley says, all right, we only have 25 left to give. Talks to the chair, should we put this on the agenda for discussion? And we can do that. I think, we've done it incrementally in the past. I have no problem going from 175 to 300 or creating the capacity, because I think it's shown that it's not, it's not causing issues out there. So there's really no reason to not have the additional capacity. So, if maybe 300 is the number, and then we just, say that going forward, we'd like to know if there was when you get to 25 left. I think at the pace that the new requests are coming in, that gives us plenty of time to put something on the agenda. And then, as we go forward, we can talk to the ARB, and if all of a sudden, we see that in one particular year, there's a big influx, and it could be just people find out about it. People start, a lot of people park overnight on the street, and some people just say, hey, I only get 5 tickets a year. That's cheaper than buying a permit. So, but then someone gets ticketed every day for 2 weeks, and that drives them to come in and get a permit. So, it could be just the way it's getting enforced. It could be, the new zoning that creates more of a demand for it. But I think if we have just a policy where we get notified at a certain point that the permits are running out, then we talk about it and talk about the increases. Because again, if we went up to 1,000, then all of a sudden if there was 1,000, that could be a potential impact. That the incremental increases have allowed us to, reassess the policy just to, again, make sure it's working and it's not creating any major traffic issues or safety concerns, that we're aware of. And it's not creating, major backlash, because, if all of a sudden you just abolish the restriction altogether, we'd have a lot of people coming in here saying, hey, why'd you do that? We didn't want you to do that. Right now, where it's, it's still kind of lays into people that need it, then, I think it works.
And I just would add one thing, because this has been my bone of contention from the beginning. When we started this journey, and it was brought to our attention, it was brought as an issue of equity and financial hardship. And we were asked to have a pilot program for, and specifically saying East Arlington, that, for people, it's different kind of housing and different incomes, and, so we started out for financial, and then we just opened it up to, and if you look at the numbers, it's spread out townwide. It's not just, it's spread out pretty evenly. And we do, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, still have the original mission of this was for people who lived in East Arlington, were renting, and it was a financial hardship for them. And we still have, and we leave that to the treasurer's office to determine. There are exclusions for financial hardship. So when you talk about the $365 fee, is that correct, Ms. Marr?
That's, the financial and medical hardships are through our office, and it's a separate program. It doesn't, and it doesn't impact the 175 that are given. If you are able to meet the criteria for a hardship or a disability, it's through our office, and we are able to issue those stickers. It's not impacted on the 175.
Right. So that's what that is. So this is, so I would, just to get it on the table, and then someone can amend it, make a motion to increase the parking pilot program by 125, which would bring us to 300. Because we're at 175, I believe.
Correct. Just want to make one comment. Just as you talk about getting higher levels, I don't know how many parking spaces we have in municipal lots, but the parking manager and I were discussing it, and when there is a snow emergency, anyone who has a parking permit is supposed to then park in a municipal lot. So you would have the people who have not only the municipal lot overnight stickers, but then you would have all the parking, on-street overnight parking permit people also trying to park in the municipal lots. So there is a certain cap that would be on that. I don't have those numbers, but just to keep that in the back of your mind as you talk about expanding the program going forward. So.
Mr. Hellman?
Were you done? I think
the only other question I had was the potential of, if somebody gets a ticket, they could get the ticket, not know about the policy, not know about the permits, pay the ticket online, and be done, right? Is there a way that we sort of tell people like, hey, here's your ticket, by the way, there's a program, come find out if it's got capacity, like to get out of that loop of just, I guess this is what life in Arlington is, I get a ticket every few nights.
Then we would run out, I think.
Okay.
I can answer if that person came in and they have gotten an on-street overnight ticket. Typically, the officer doing that at night would not be able to engage the individual, the resident, because typically it's overnight. So if they come in, typically the parking manager will let them know about the 14 nights that you can call up to, the station and get an overnight pass. So she will let them know about that program. So that is a way to avoid tickets. And we will let them know about the on-street overnight with the idea that they can keep it in mind if they're interested in that when the program opens up. For now, we've just been saying that it was going to be discussed here, but that it would open up for 2027. So we do try, if somebody comes in to the treasurer's office to pay a fine of that sort, to give them pertinent information.
Okay. Yeah, if I Google Arlington overnight parking, I can get to the form, but it's not necessarily intuitive. I don't know if that's an easy website change. There's something about the first thing that comes up is overnight parking, and it doesn't link to the program.
Okay.
So I'm just, I don't want to put people out when we have something to give them and we're just not getting them to it. That's all, but I'll shut up.
Thank you. I definitely want to raise the cap to tonight. I'm fine with 300. I think that, the cost is high. That was kind of on purpose. I'm open to thinking about that. And I think the time is probably coming where we ought to reconsider all aspects of this program. But I think one of the reasons for the cost being what it is to try to strike a balance, as the chair was saying, between the need that people have in many circumstances and the repeatedly expressed desire of town residents to not just allow lots of overnight parking. So that's the reason for it. And I'm happy to keep the motion to what it is tonight. I just wanted to point out the treasurer in her memo, and thank you for this, and a couple of other recommendations I thought were interesting, one of which I don't think I like, but one of which I think I do, and might be something to consider as we reevaluate this thing on a larger scale. One of them is requiring all outstanding motor vehicle-related balances to be paid in full before a permit can be issued. I really like that because that's a good lever to make sure that people pay their parking tickets. And we've been doing other things along those lines to ensure that, because it's revenue for the town, but it's also an incentive to comply with the parking law. So that would be interesting to me. I think the interesting point, the other recommendation was kind of eliminating the practice of giving people the first opportunity, sort of reserving your permit, the next year. I recall the reason we did that was that people who are taking advantage of this, even though we are told it's a pilot program, it's pretty clear now that it's as permanent as things can get in government, and that they're making an investment in changing their lives, getting into the car, getting that living, not knowing if you're going to get the permit in the lottery the next year is not a happy place to be. So, I'm willing to think about that as well as we evaluate it all, but just I wanted to note that those were good points to raise. And I think we ought to take that up and maybe look at the rest of it. And before we vote, I wanted to see if the 300 would, to the town manager's knowledge, create any problem with the space for snow spots in municipal lots.
It would not. It would be under the available number of parking spaces in off-street lots.
So I'm good with that then.
Yeah. And I think,
You know the number.
a lot of people have them.
I think Mr. Diggins used to know that number.
I think a lot of people that have the permits.
It's over 800.
Have the ability to park somewhere on their house. It's just, they're willing to pay the $365 because it's more convenient to park on the street. And, I think it's worth receiving the comments that we got about, again, this was a pilot that we were trying to help alleviate an issue for people that didn't have parking. There was never really any consideration to allow more than one overnight parking per household, and I don't think does it create some issues? Potentially, but, it's when you choose your residence and you choose what fits for your family, I think, we're helping out those families by allowing what was not available before. And I think, if we expanded beyond one permit per household, then we would get a fair amount of pushback, especially in, the East Arlington neighborhoods and the two-family neighborhoods where it creates some congestion. So again, I don't want to dismiss a concern that's been brought to us, but it is something that we've talked about, and it's always been since we had the policy. And could it change in the future with the future board? Yep, because this is just parking policy, which is easy. It's not, doesn't have to go to town meeting or get state approval. It just, it can be amended at any given meeting. But I think we're coming to a good spot now by, again, making sure there's enough permits, and then, kind of having a discussion that, the treasurer's office and the select board office can follow up with, that just keeps the line of communication open, that once, I would say 25, and once we get to 25 available permits or less, that, it gets on our radar for discussion. It could be a memo and correspondence received that we receive, and then determine when we want to put it on an agenda. I think that would be a prudent policy to make sure that we're not turning people away because of lack of permits. So do we have a motion to increase the number of permits to 300? Seconded by Mr. Hellman. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous vote. All right, and that brings us to item 21, discussion and vote, reappointment process. Mr. Helmut.
Thanks for putting me on last. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I inherited.
Motion to approve.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's really, it's good stuff, fast. I inherited the work for this from our departed member. Just to be clear, he departed not this earth, but just to Somerville. And so far as I know. But this sprang from the town manager's goals discussions from last summer, where the town manager actually suggested that the board contemplate, in collaboration with the town manager and other appointing authorities for boards, commissions, and commissions, some way to provide, invite, and enable and empower opportunities for more people to serve on boards, commissions, and committees. Because right now, our reappointment process has been more or less de facto automatic. And so the work we've been taking over the last few months has been to try to craft a policy that you see in front of you now as a draft, which is probably not perfect, and that's why it's for discussion. The intent of this is to try to strike a balance between creating space for new people. And I just want to point, too, that when the town did its equity audit and equity plan, that one of the recommendations was to really focus on this and giving opportunity for more new ideas and more people to serve. But to strike a balance between that and to recognize that, A, we don't have unlimited talent in town, and sometimes institutional knowledge to stay on a committee for multiple terms can be really important and really valuable. So we don't want to tie our hands, in my view at least, that way either by having a term limit. That would be maybe a solution in search of a problem. So how do we do this? So the proposal that's before us for discussion, a vote if we want to or not, would be to say, well, what if, unless there's a problem or an unusual circumstance, normally a appointee to a 3-year term on a board, commission, or committee could serve for 2 terms consecutively. And then at that point, they would be thanked for that, but to say, we can, the town manager, if they're the appointing authority, the select board say, you're welcome to apply, but we're going to open this up to the public. We're going to go through the process again, and you'll be in the pool with everybody else. You could be reappointed, or the town may decide that its needs have changed for expertise or voice, and so you might not. And the town manager's innovation on this, as I've worked with him and also the clerk to figure out how to operationalize this, and I know that he worked with other staff members, would be to, that he's going to go into to have a mechanism to kind of have a pool of applicants kind of at the ready, so that we could still advertise, but would have some ability to kind of know who might be interested and what they might bring to the role once those 2 terms have come up for a member. The idea of a pilot came about really because of operational capacity. We have over 60 active boards, commissions, and committees. It would be a lot to try to do this all at once, especially before we know how it works. So a pilot would let us try it. We can tweak it and perfect it, and I'm sure that it will get changed. A pilot also, we're suggesting 10. The board could add or remove to that. And those are listed in the appendix at the end of the policy, but I'm going to read them for the public. The ZBA, the ARB, the Board of Health, Park and Recreation Commission, Library Trustees, Trust Funds Commissioners, Conservation Commission, Historic Districts Commission, Cemetery and Historical Commission. Those are on our public agenda for tonight's meeting. And the rationale for those is the memo. Some of that's just practical. Those have a centralized appointing authority in this room, the town manager, the board, or both. Again, in the spirit of learning from a pilot, some of the boards and commissions, like the Finance Committee, for instance, or the CPA, have multiple members. They have multiple appointing authorities and multiple people having votes. That would be more complicated to try to enforce a new practice, especially before we've had a chance to try it out. So the town manager actually suggested these 10, and I'll let him speak to anything else he wants to that I missed, and also kind of talk a little bit more about the operationalization.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Helmuth. I think you touched well upon most of the points here. I do think, the memo did note, part of the choice in these commissions is that they derive statutory authority, which means they have a lot of independent and substantial decision-making authority, and that may be over licensing, permitting, jurisdiction over private property, policy-making, development of public property, the investment or disbursement of funds. So those are all very important functions. And from what I've seen in my experience as being the appointing authority is we tend to have more applicants than we do have seats for vacancies on those boards, committees, and commissions. Whereas if you were to look at our committee openings page, and if there is, some of our special interest committees or advisory committees or other types of committees, we are oftentimes advertising long-term vacancies and trying to fill those positions. So, based on my experience, I thought that these would be the boards, committees, and commissions where the board may wish to start its pilot. And what the town would do to operationalize this, in my opinion, is just rethink how we advertise these things. For those 10 boards, committees, and commissions, I would envision us setting up a new section of the website that makes clear for these, you can express interest and apply on a rolling basis. So there would be a form, so you don't need to, by chance, wait for there to be a vacancy, and then you see our vacancy announcement and you wish to apply at that time, right? If you're interested in the Historic District Commission, you could apply at any time, and every year there may be an opportunity for us to look at the pool of applicants who have expressed interest in that position, because as you know how our terms work is, there's always someone each year coming up. So while for the majority of our boards, committees, and commissions, we would still do sort of vacancy-based announcements and post-committee openings. We would establish a new section of the website, new process for anyone interested in those, the 10 pilot boards, committees, and commissions shown here, to express interest at any time on a rolling basis. And then when we have the opportunity where someone is reaching, having served 2 consecutive terms, they may wish to continue to serve, but we'll also look at our applicant pool then to see if there's any other interested parties whom we may reach out to and go through our customary process for filling vacancy by conducting interviews, reviewing resumes, et cetera. So that's all I wanted to add.
Well, I guess my one question would be that just about all these boards have many, many members that are already past their initial term. If we institute that, would we post the seat when they're up for renewal since they've already been on the board for a certain number of terms, or is it 2 years from 2 terms from today?
So,
or is it something that we just discussed?
Well, I mean, so that's a point
covered
that
here.
is worth discussing, and in the draft, which is, again, a draft, it has a little, item 5 says the policy shall apply retroactively to appointees already serving consecutive terms, which would do what you said, and I think the board would need to decide with the town manager, you know, is that what we want to do, or do we want to sort of grandparent folks in?
I think that makes sense to do, because, you know, we'd have to wait 6 years to see if this was this is working. I think the point is we have, you know, some boards that consistently have vacancies, and we have these boards in front of us that consistently do not. And you know, I'm sure there's some, it would be good to be able to gauge where we're, you know, only posting the vacancy, letters, so requesting people to submit letters of interest in the event that there's a vacancy. It would be good for these boards to see if there is an interest in filling some of these seats. And for people that are on these commissions, you know, there's certainly value to institutional knowledge. So people that are applying have to know that they might be, you know, going up against somebody that knows the board and does well on it, but I don't think that's a reason to not do it. So I'm good with it. Mrs. Mahan?
Just to get us on the table, I'd like to make a motion to approve the pilot reappointment process as outlined by the vice chair and the town manager. And I definitely agree with what's in the draft, making it retroactive. I think this is really a good policy just in terms of, and I've just had conversations with Mr. Helmuth, because I didn't realize he was picking up the mantle from where Mr. Diggins went started with the town manager, and I apologize for that because he had done so much work on it, which warmed my heart, because I'm like, we're way ahead than I thought we were. And part of the reason I was hoping that I thought that it had dropped and I didn't realize the vice chair, Mr. Helmuth, had picked up was because just myself individually, and I shared this with Mr. Helmuth in terms of hearing from different residents across the town. And I think it's a good thing that, like me, I know I have to run every 3 years. This is going to sound corny, but it is the God's honest truth that it really lets me reevaluate, do I want this job? Am I fit for this job? Is my family and my work life still with this job? And I think by going through that process, it allows, like Nathaniel Stevens, if we could have kept him for another 57 years, but I would still want in a Conservation Commission, he'd have my vote for as long as I could do it, but unless something radically changed. But so I'm for institutional knowledge, being the longest serving member on this board as of right now, currently, of the 5 of us. But I think this is a good thing that it answers so many questions and things that we've heard in terms of opening up government, opening up the processes to serve and volunteer in the town. And I think it will help other boards and commissions sort of go through the process without having to raise money, but to really go through and evaluate to say, because, Arlington does change. Any city or town changes. And people can change with that and still be just as effective. But I'm going far astray because I'm trying to say certain things in a tactful way. But I think this is a good group of 10 to start out as a pilot. And I am by no means picking any commission or board or individual. I have no idea, who's up next or whatever. But I think this is a very good thing to start and a very good pilot program of 10. So that's why I'd make a motion to approve the pilot reappointment process.
I would second that. My one question is on the operational side. So let's say you appoint somebody on day 0 and somebody's interested and they apply on day 1. Their next opportunity is essentially a year later, right? And you're building a pool of candidates over that period of time. And then, these are very important boards. When you need to make the reappointment, do you have enough, are you going to give yourself a lot of time to check and make sure that person is still into it 9 months later? And that, my concern is that we run the risk of potentially getting closer and finding out, all these people that put in, it's now later, they've changed their mind, and we're in a mad dash to make sure that we have candidates.
So in discussing this, what we chose was a 3-month window to start that process before a reappointment would be made. We felt that was sufficient enough that we're not, gauging someone's interest 6 months in advance and then finding out that it has similarly changed on the other end. But that also gives time to reach out to the incumbent to see if they remain interested. It gives time for due diligence, as though it has not been customary to do so in the past, to potentially reach out to the chair, check that member's attendance, identify any particular issues that may have arisen during the term, see how they're performing, understand what's going to be before that board, committee, or commission in the upcoming years ahead in terms of policy decisions or special permit decisions that might require a certain level of expertise that we may go out and see. We certainly, when we do experience vacancies, we work with the board, what would be, the most beneficial sort of professional expertise to have, and we try to seek that out in the applicant pool and then appoint it. So we arrived at 3 months probably being the window of time that provides sort of the sweet spot for allowing all those things to happen, but also still having sufficient time to reach out to candidates who had previously expressed interest and or recruit additional candidates if there are none to choose from.
All right. We have a motion to approve by Mrs. Maharan, seconded by Mrs. Solomon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous vote. Correspondence received. Number 22, cemetery parking, Stephen Harrington. 23, Town Communications Channel for Resident Advocacy, Stephen Harrington. And number 24, request for historic marker for Dr. George F. Grant, Pearl Morrison, Chair of the Martin Luther King Jr. Birthday Observance Committee of Arlington, and David Ludwig, Doctor Grant Subcommittee Chair. Is that a typo? Is that just, okay.
No, Dave
The guy is
Ludwig is
Dr.
the
Grant.
Dr. Grant Committee Chair.
Oh, Dr. Grant Committee. Okay.
You want to make Mr. Ludwig a doctor? No.
Oh, I was going to say, is that what it's like referring to? Okay. I'll take a motion from the board.
Move receipt for the first two, move receipt and referral for item 24 to the Public Memorials Committee.
Do we have a second?
Second, and
Mr. Feeney?
I would just note on number 24, the agenda materials actually receive back a referral from the Public Memorials Committee. So the board had referred it, and they are sending back their correspondence. My recommendation would be to refer it to myself, and then I would confer with the Recreation Director and Park and Recreation Commission, as it will be placed on land under their jurisdiction.
Thank you. I amend my motion so stated.
And one other question on number 23, I believe, the town meeting procedures committee, which includes the moderator, discussed this. Is that correct, Mr. Feeney?
That is correct, Mrs. Mahan.
Do you think there's anything that they decided that could be communicated back to Mr. Harrington, or?
I did receive a preliminary update from the town's moderator, but I have not had a chance to follow up directly to see if they took a vote, if there will be any further discussion on the matter. So once I have that confirmation, I would be intending on reaching out to Mr. Harrington directly to provide an update on that process.
Okay, thank you. I just had figured that, you know, it's not our domain or our decision, we're not the decision makers on this. It would be the moderator and town meeting procedures committee, and they were meeting, and so the correspondence did get referred, so there's no action needed right now, but there will be an answer from the authority that oversees that. Thank you. And I think I seconded your motion, or somebody did? Okay.
Motion to receive by Mr. Helmuth, seconded by Mrs. Mahan. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Unanimous vote. All right. New business.
No new business,
Ms.
thank you.
Meyer. Attorney Cunningham.
No new business, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Feeney.
No new business. Thank you.
Mrs. Mahan.
I do have new business. I'll try to be brief. I know we've settled on a date for the select board goals and town manager goals in September. I asked the board administrator to send me last year's goals just to go over it. And I shared my thoughts with the town manager in terms of he refined the document that the previous town manager, Mr. Chapdelaine, came up with. And he's already made revisions to it. If there's anybody else on the board that, you know, feels it should be amended in some way, should it stay the 5-6-page single-space thing? Should it not? I did, you know, also express to him, I do appreciate whatever the document is, for how many pages, however many pages and however many lines. I do like that we do go through each one, and the manager sort of gives us a premiere on each thing and where it's at. I will say, and I'll look at, because I know we shouldn't just keep adding to things, but I will be, I have two things I want to put on. Won't say what both of them are. One of them, I'm doing work looking at comparable towns, and it comes from the root of a current redevelopment board member who approached me and the town manager at town meeting, who indicated which was their right to, said that I voted no on the override even though, and said because the select board did not make any business commitments in the override, and recognizing what we have years ahead of us. And instead of, my first retort would have been, well, that's the redevelopment board. But then I thought, okay, let's look at this as a positive. And I have seen that other comparable towns do have, so I'm looking at coming up with a goal to discuss with my colleagues about a biannual sort of report card, score sheet from the planning department to track business and housing and to kind of keep us more up to speed on that. But so just to let you all know that, but I'm making sure that I get it from other towns so that it's not just, that it's the best thing that it can be. And then the other thing that I wanted to, and I'm not saying you guys have to come up with any new things to do, because it's not like you all have a life, but I do too. But the other thing is, I did meet with Natasha Waden to give all praise and glory to her, that when I put out about the, this board put out about the soccer watch party, she basically had 4 mini town days up there would have had 5 if it didn't rain, up at the Arlington Res. As of right now, all of it was charged to the Recreation Department budget, and it was about a $25,000 loss. So when I was going over with her, because there was an issue regarding the brewery company, not here at Town Hall, but up at the Res, and she gave me, to date, we have received nothing in terms of payment for June 19th, June 24th, June 26th, July 1st. And the other thing that I was surprised by is, and then as a result of that, I started looking at other things, because when I was chair, I didn't recall seeing any monies coming in for Town Day. Last year's Town Day has not been paid by the Arlington Brewery Company. And I know this year's Patriots' Day has not been paid, and I'm not sure about last day. So I discussed with the manager and the board administrator to get, and they've started taking steps on that, to start figuring that out. But the other thing that I was concerned about is, I think, and I'm going to leave it to the town manager and the board administrator, moving forward, and other breweries do this, when you're at an event at 6:05, at 6 o'clock when it's over, at 6:05, I say, hit the button, and you get a printout of how many customers and what the service was. And then the manager said, well, they could do it in a PDF. You know, I'm old school, but I said, well, as long as it wasn't, oh, we have to do a PDF, because that's what we're doing right now. We've been doing the honor system, and we're not getting anything. And in my opinion, looking at what was reported for the first night with 3,800 attendance approximately, the one number that they say is our cut, so to speak, isn't even close. Not that they paid it. So I'm just irate with when we go out and, you know, people say to me, oh yeah, you tell me you've looked under every couch and you looked for every penny and things like that. Now I'm coming across, you know, I think if the brewery part of it for the 4 mini town days, in my opinion, was properly tracked, and we were, and then there's a discrepancy about how much the pour is, which I think there shouldn't be. I don't think it would be a $22,000 loss. I think it would be, you know, closer to the low teens, if that. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. And I know, you know, some people may say, you know, we're not talking a lot of money with a multi-million-dollar budget, but I'll leave it at that. And that's it. Thank you.
No new business.
No new business. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
By Mr. Helmuth, seconded by Mrs. Mahan. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? We are adjourned.